Thank God the vertical one didn't end. Okay, that should be good. Okay, we've got a lot of cucks in the chat, so let's go back. Um, whoa, got a lot. Okay, I want to know about that. What do you want to know about Death Touch? I don't know what you're talking about. It's like asking why we eat pigs because they're pigs. That begs the question of what trait or set of traits are true of the animal, which, if true of the human, would cause you to say that you would kill the trait equalized being as you do the pig. Happy Gilmore, main point is take your reduction to a singular trait. Only you can traverse the scale of extremism. Yeah, Happy Gilmore, you're an absolute sophist. You're definitely going to go on timeout. That's just absolute dog crap. I don't know what the heck you're saying. Let's go back. Where'd we go? Why the F are we talking about cannibalism? Well, if you define cannibalism as that to which is someone who shares your DNA backstabs, all you have to do to get around that is to just say, since you're so averse to it, that there was a being who technically didn't have human DNA but was subjectively similar to a human, right? Are you going to say it's okay to kill and eat those beings? Eat right for your type. Yeah, so diets are distinct from philosophies, right? Yeah. There's also no reason to believe that there's particular diet types for people. People are actually extremely biologically similar. And so, with the exception of like a few different nuances for, what may be true of your particular genetics, generally speaking, it's overwhelmingly the case that anybody can thrive on a plant-based diet with very little intervention. They're not the same thing. Humans are humans. That's just going to question beg what trait is true of an animal, which, if true of a human, would cause you to say that it's okay to kill the trait equalized human as you would the animal. Pigs are pigs, cows are cows. God, this is so stupid. Well, the only one who's stupid, Kevin, is the person who continues to avoid naming the trait because you either don't understand it, or this might not be a matter of stupidity. This might be you actually just playing dumb on purpose. This is low average IQ rubbish. Which one is it? Is it low IQ or average IQ? It's actually not low IQ or average at all to, it actually depends on what you're referring to. I could agree with you that it takes very little IQ, quote unquote, or very little critical thought in order to understand name the trait. But that's not the main issue that I would preside is occurring with people who take a problem with name the trait. It's mainly that people are extremely motivated. So it's not like they actually have some incapability. It is technically poor reasoning that inspires them to kill and eat, or continue to come up with justifications to kill and eat animals. But it doesn't take a strong form of capability in order to realize the problems there. Humans are friends, not food. Okay, it's going to question beg. What trait is true of an animal, which, if true of a human, would cause you to say that the human is no longer a friend, but food? This guy again. Which guy? Me or somebody else? You're the one who joined my live stream. What trait, if an animal had, would it make it immoral to eat, or what trait would it make it moral to eat human? Wait, what? What trait, if an animal had, would it make it immoral to eat? Well, the trait equalization process starts at what you value. So what trait would make it moral to eat a human? Or trait or set of traits make it moral to eat a human? Technically, the correct terminology is a trait equalized human, because you're starting from a human, Kevin, and then you're working your way through the trait equalization process, slowly taking away traits, right? Whatever trait or set of traits that you would actually name that you think make it morally justified to consume this whatever being it is in question. But you decide what those traits are. This is horseshite. They are different things. They won't be the same. When you say they won't be the same, we're not asking if the trait equalization process would come into fruition or into reality. But the underlying reasoning, if you wouldn't accept it, would be true of the real world right now. So, for example, if you thought the trait that made it acceptable to kill and eat a trait equalized human and not an animal was having less intelligence or slightly altered DNA. A severely mentally handicapped human who was born with altered DNA, right, would be a being that you'd have to say would be okay to kill and eat for food, right? It just would be insanely dumb. They are different things. They won't be the same. That's just going to beg the prescription. We're wondering what trait, if it were true of an animal, which if it were true of a human, would make it okay, would make it morally acceptable to kill and eat the animal, the human, the trait equalized human as you would the animal. Your style is condescending, and I think Happy Gilmore has pegged you here already. Is this an alt of yours? Did you go through that much work, Happy Gilmore, that you made an alt just to...
Big time fanboy.
Super fanboy. I am so appreciative that I have people who are such super fans that they literally are bored with pretending that they are happy with me, so they want to give me a challenge because they understand that I like intellectual stimulation. That is the sweetest thing you could ever fucking do. So if you intended to upset me, you actually really made me happy. Yeah, just calling a style condescending is really uninteresting to me. Cows and chickens only exist because people made them to eat. I think you mean the current domesticated species of cows and chickens that we have. Right. So if we only had a certain form of, humans that were that existed because other humans bred them into existence, are you going to say that makes it morally acceptable to kill the beings in question because we just gave them the ability to exist? Bloody hell, this is really a simple thing. The name of the trait argument is, again, it's not an argument. It's a consistency test, right? You can't look in the mirror, can you? You just cannot reflect on your own values. You're scared. You're running. Jesus. Utterly pointless. No, it actually has a point to it. It's to make you realize that the logical consequences of your own view are inescapable. And if you actually had the balls to face them, you would never even consider touching dead animals again. Sway, who are you talking to when you say, are you a doctor? If so, what are your credentials? I never claimed to be a doctor, but I wouldn't have to claim to be a doctor in order to respond to people's medical statements that are that stand on their own 2 feet individualistically, right? Like, for example, if there's a logical flaw with what somebody says, and it's a nutritional, medical, health, science-based question, I'm free to poke holes at any logical problems that I see and not be a doctor and what I say be true. I could point out that I could ask you questions and point out how you're not agnostic, how you don't understand something. These are not logical problems. These are not, there's just no issue with it, right? Phobic. Loving the calming piano breaks though. Well, I mean, I hate you virtuistically. But I'm glad to see universally that my music appears to be extremely likable, that even my enemies can't help but love it. At least you'll admit that, right? Oh, I gotta catch up. Jesus. Okay. Yeah. Those breaks, I swear to God, they'll be the death of me. Wait, in order to eat an animal, it needs to have a trait? You're beyond lost, Backstabs. In order to justify consuming eating an animal, right? You have to name a trait or a set of traits that explain your difference of attitude of why it's wrong to eat the human, but okay to eat the animal. Otherwise, you are left with the position that would say you're just unsure. You're agnostic on if it's okay to eat humans for food. If you want to be somebody who holds that position that you don't know if it's okay to eat humans for food, because you don't have a trait or set of traits that morally distinguish the two beings such that it's okay to kill and eat the one, not the other, then that's pretty ridiculous. Um, at Backstabs, yes, the trait being edible. Well, what do you mean by edible? Do you mean consuming calories? Because that's not going to be a differential trait. How many bees die a year so vegans can have avocado and almonds? Why do you assume that it's a value of mine or even vegans in general in order to avoid bees dying? Why do you assume that's a value, right? I mean, this is Dan. This is tantamount to saying, you know, hey, there's an applied ethics concern about a particular being that dies in the production of certain foods, which I thought it was wasps. I didn't think it was bees. But even if it were bees or wasps, whatever the fuck, I'm led to believe that they die in the food without us actually killing them. Like, it's just a part of the process. But anyways, even if there was some sort of, like, you know, amount of deaths that occur similar to crop deaths, whatever the fuck, first of all, you don't have to subscribe to that being wrong any more than you don't have to subscribe to crop deaths. But provided anybody did, it wouldn't logically follow that it's okay to violate, you know, both farm animals and fish and that set of beings, and as well as that, you know, the other set of beings, right? It could be the case that you make a point that somebody is hypocritical to their own values if they did find it wrong and they didn't have a way to reconcile the position. But it wouldn't logically follow that you would not be obligated to believe in at least one set of beings' rights if you were to appreciate if you were to appreciate at least one set of beings, which, let's just say that's the cows, chickens, and pigs. It wouldn't logically follow that if you didn't have a way to reconcile the other set of beings, or if you should even value them, or whatever your position might be there, that you shouldn't value either set of beings. That's going to be like saying, like, let's just say there's somebody who's like pro choice, right? Maybe it's true that they ought to value sentient fetuses, but certainly not valuing sentient fetuses wouldn't cause them to say that now they have a justification to kill and eat, you know, adult humans, right? Or even just people outside of the womb. So that's really stupid. I'd love to debate this on camera. However, being the technophobe I am not on any kind of Discord. Well, it's a real shame that you're, you know, too mentally impaired to be able to figure out how to download Discord on your phone. That's just a real shame. But, you know, you have a position where you can chirp on here all you want. I mean, do you know anybody that has a quarter of a brain that can help you through it? Because that'd be great. The B argument is wild. I know it's actually painfully dumb. Like, I want to get into crop deaths. Maybe we'll have time during this live stream, maybe not. I know we got to get through the Natalie Fulton name the trait BS here. But yeah, I'm seeing it more and more about the crop deaths BS. I am inspired to do something as quickly as possible on it, for sure. They're literally one of the most important species on the planet. Wait. You make it sound as if we are endangering bees because we eat avocados and almonds. Like that anybody would. Is that the argument? Wait, is that the argument? Are you claiming that we are endangering the lives of bees because we eat almonds and avocado? I have never, if you think you have positive evidence for that, posit it, okay? Do not posture in the corner and make such an outlandish fucking claim. Defend your position, you brain-dead moron. Do not just say something like that if you don't have evidence. It's disgusting. It's stupid. It's embarrassing. You should be ashamed of yourself, but you've probably incinerated the part of your brain that's associated with feeling guilt. Fuck. Okay. Why is it wild? Dan, yo. We've got a lot of cucks in the chat. Cold Poison. That means he's not able to defend his stance intelligently yet again. Amazing coming from someone who has not hopped on Voice to give any sort of justification for a trait or set of traits that are true of an animal, which if true of a human would cause you to say that it's okay to kill the trait equal as being as you would the animal. Amazing. But I'm the one who's not able to defend my stance. Um, well, it's the Carnist that needs to defend their stance if they can't name the trait, because they're the only ones with a either logically absurd or logically incoherent position, right? Because either not answering name the trait, answering it with a contradictory position, or answering it with a non-contradictory but absurd position are going to result in some sort of response that even to the person themselves would be unsatisfactory if they were to be honest with themselves. Tito, why is it wild? No denying that, but animals require a whole lot more corn and soy than humans eat almonds or avocado. Right, you can make the point that like animals require more and so on and so forth, but the strongest point that I think the vegan movement really ought to hop on is the realization that there is no reason why an appeal to hypocrisy defeats the base position of animal rights, right? Like, I spoke to somebody in my comments earlier who is trying to get me to value, most insects outside of bees. Funnily enough, even though bees are one of the only non-trivially sentient insects, as I understand it. But it's just funny because like I explained to him that I didn't value most insect, like almost all insects except for bees. Or maybe I didn't mention the bee part yet, but I said I don't value insects. I think they're either non-sentient or trivially sentient. And he kept trying to tell me what my values are, and it's just funny because like there's a hyperfixation currently that vegans have that I think Carnists are getting vegans to take the bait on, which is whether or not there is any sort of relevance to a vegan having or ought having an appreciation for insect rights and being on the defense with that position. Even though, yes, there's the utilitarian point of whether or not World A versus World B produces more or less suffering. Like, I'm sure the Carnist isn't aware of if wild animal suffering is greater in the non-crop deaths world. I'm sure the people talking about the B point are one and the same. I'm sure these are all true points, but the most important aspect here is really as a priority. Would it ever defeat human rights, whether or not as a normative belief in the right to life and autonomy, just because humans haven't yet worked out whether or not we ought to be pro-life or pro-choice, for example? The answer is no. Like, it's clearly fucking no. Like, you could have a solid answer with regards to the base idea of animal rights, regardless of whether or not you've reconciled if crop deaths are wrong, although that's a meme. Like, we shouldn't be entertaining that there's any sort of defeat that's happening, because then we really have let the fixation become that there's no point in dealing with animal rights because they haven't even worked out this kink within their view, right? And it's like, guys, we haven't worked out all sorts of applied ethics human rights positions. That doesn't defeat the concept of the basic human rights, right? Saying that in case you refer to the pesticides killing the bees. So not that wild then if avocado and almond ain't that important. Wait, what do you mean it's not that wild? What's wild is making a positive claim, not having any evidence for it. The transportation of the bees. Yeah, I'm unaware of the process, but I have... Wait, is that a response to how they die? Because just stating that that's the case doesn't tell me any sort of evidence of whether or not your specific claim implicated. Or sorry, there was an implication that you had a specific claim that anybody, right, vegan or not, would be endangering bees' lives if they were to consume almonds and avocados. That seems to be abundantly fucking unclear, right? That's just like what sort of evidence you have for that positive claim. I don't get your argument anymore. Right, it's not wild, mate. It's actually destructive to our environment. You want to know what our planet would be like without bees? Yeah, now you're just moving on to assuming that somebody doesn't value bees, even though you've just assumed your claim to be the case and haven't substantiated evidence for it. So, again, do you have evidence that anybody consuming almonds or avocados would be would be endangering the lives of bees, right, as a species. Let's see. But it's not true, idiot. Wait, Kevin, where did you come from? What's not true? How did the bees die for your argument, though? Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the claim in which they die? Dan Brunswick. Or Beeswick? I just realized he has Beswick, which kind of sounds like bees in his name. Holy shit. If you're trading, oh my god, how did we get this far? You understand that farm animals are fed a lot of crops, right? Any problem you have with crop production is massively exacerbated by animal agriculture. Right, that's an issue that nobody can reconcile for sure. That point is important, but it's really only secondary to the realization that you're not reconciling a base appreciation for animals' right to life and autonomy just because you started talking about how an applied ethics issue exists for or an interpretation of an applied ethics issue exists. We really shouldn't be letting Carnists try to run circles around us on this issue when they haven't reconciled something as fundamental as the basic rights of animals. Let's see. Dandelion gum. What? It's so obvious what I'm saying, so stop misunderstanding on purpose. Don't assume people's intentions, Dan. That's going to be a strike. You're absolutely looking bad. Dan, if you don't want to be misunderstood, you might want to elaborate your argument. Yo, Tita, coming through. Holy shit. Dandelion gum. You're making a point about crop production being terrible for biodiversity and the environment. And you also assume that only vegans eat avocados and almonds, but animal agriculture is much worse. Fantastic points. Number one, if it's not solely isolated to vegans, why would you make it out to vegans? Secondly, why would you be for animal agriculture when that would exacerbate the very issue you're pretending to care about, you're virtue signaling towards? And thirdly, last but not least, in fact, I think it's the main priority, how do you think you reconcile violating the rights of to life and autonomy of animals, like farm animals, fish, so on and so forth, just because you think that there's an applied ethics issue with regards to a specific sub-point within animal rights? If you're trade equalizing, you're starting with the assumption that humans and animals are equal. Do you let your dog drive? No, you're not. You fail to understand the trade equalization process. The trade equalization process literally asks if you have a difference of attitude, requires that you have a difference of attitude between humans and animals, such that you find it to be morally acceptable to kill the one set of beings and not the other. But it's not an entailment that you view both equally if you find killing animals to be wrong to a sufficient enough degree as you would humans. I have a video titled Moral Sufficiency versus Equality. Stop this conflation. Stop this conflation, rather, is the first part. Anyways, it's to stop this exact sophistry where you say something like, name the trait assumes some kind of concept of equality. You literally cannot get confused on that if you just spend 6 minutes of your life watching that video instead of spending, you've tuned in for an hour here already, and you've come to me with that. I actually don't know if this is sophisticated trolling. So no, that's not an entailment. I feel like you are purposefully misunderstanding me, cause you don't have an argument. You've actually just not reiterated anything to Dandelion Gum or Tito, Dan. Dan Beeswick, you are concerned about biodiversity. That is your point, right? Or am I wrong? I thought, Dandelion Gum, I thought he was referring to, I don't know if that goes under biodiversity, but I thought he was referring to some kind of claim that, people who eat almonds and avocados, although he's strangely insinuating that only vegans do that, or that they're at least the main driver of such, would be morally problematic, or sorry, would specifically cause bees to become endangered. And there's just no reason to believe that. Like, he has not provided any evidence whatsoever. Phobic says, also at Cold Poison, you should figure out how to add super chats to your stream. So as a workaround, I have Streamlabs, and I have my pinned comment of at the top. I actually don't have enough watch hours yet, technically speaking, by YouTube standards. I'm not a part of the YouTube partner program. So, you could at least contribute in some way, shape, or form if you would like. Or maybe you're just entertained by the idea of seeing people do that, which is why you're asking. So not quite sure, but that's my current position that I'm at right now, unfortunately. At Dan, and you are making the claim based on the assumption that all vegans eat avocados and almonds. That doesn't seem very rational. Right. There's a ton of indications that show bad faith, right? There's the assumption that vegans are the main. Let's count them, Dandelion. There's the assumption that vegans are that all vegans eat avocados and almonds. That vegans, even if not all vegans do that, vegans are the main drivers of eating avocados and almonds, even though the majority of the world that's non-vegan would, in the net, consume more avocados and almonds. That there is some sort of endangerment to the lives of bees as a whole for anybody who does consume avocados and almonds, even without any positive evidence for such. And that there's any sort of rights violations that occur within that process. There's at least 4 main issues I can think of, with the last 2 probably being the largest. None of you have actually replied to my point. Dan, everyone has tried to reply to you, and you literally have you've done exactly what you've been claiming other people are doing, which is intentionally tune out, because you were asked multiple times by multiple people, and you just don't respond. No, but avocado and almonds are obviously being grown more due to the rise in veganism. Wait, what? Another positive claim. Wait. More avocados and almonds are obviously being grown due to the rise in veganism? That's not clear. Unless there was a specific... unless people who went plant-based specifically created more demand for almonds and avocados for their choice of diet replacements... and especially to a statistically significant degree, that's not intuitive. And to whatever degree that it would occur, that somebody would, that there would be an increase, that still wouldn't tell us anything about the endangerment of bees occurring from anybody who does consume them. And that certainly wouldn't tell us that it's a rights violation by itself. You'd have to tell us what the process is for us to understand if we would disagree with the process from our set of values, right? Look it up. Yeah, telling somebody else to look something up when you ask them for positive evidence is just indicative that you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. This format is super slow. It's going to take you forever to read. I would have to spend $10 just to get an answer from you real quick. Well, then you really should learn how to use Streamlabs. You know, I had some issues with the stream. You said you enjoy the music. I got those reconciled, and I'm catching up now. Like, I'm usually better at it, but I'm gonna take my time on this. Prove it. Dandelion's sticking to, I presume, her guns or gums. This should be good. No, but millions. What should be good? No, but millions die. Lol, you don't know. Wait, saying that bees die is not interesting. Saying that it's a showing that it's a rights violation, which is not the same thing, would be. So is the process something that ought to be looked at as a rights violation as cows, chickens, and pigs? Why would that be, right? If that's your point, make the case. Dan, even if that were the case, there are even more deaths by bees by meat production than in direct plant production of humans. That's probably the case, yeah. All bees die in 40 to 45 days except queens. I keep bees. You know what? Yeah, it's actually funny. I think Kevin and Dan are both Carnists, but it seems like Kevin... Even though Kevin seemed like he was a partial troll, it seems like Kevin was like, bro, that, if I'm understanding it correctly, I think Kevin was like, bro, they die anyways in 40 to 45 days. So there's not really a moral issue with that. I could be misreading what Kevin is trying to say, but that would actually really be funny if, like, even Kevin, another Carnist, is calling you out on your attempt to try to create an issue for veganism. That would be funny. At Dan, how many bees are there in the world? Just curious. What point do you think you're making? What's embarrassing is you selectively care about animals. What do you mean by selectively, right? Like, in order to say somebody, the connotation behind the word selectively implies that somebody has a false preference, right? That their true preference would be to value a being or set of beings, but they have some incentive that's more superficial and create some sort of poor reasoning to cause somebody to be led to an incorrect conclusion. For example, and this is an actual case of such, most people's core values do align with, veganism, with not killing cows, chickens, and pigs. But they selectively, quote unquote, care about, if not cats and dogs, they would care about trade equalized humans. However, they don't care about trade equalized. They don't realize that the consideration towards a trade equalized human would just be the animal in question that they are depriving of having moral value. And so that would be a situation where it would make sense to point out the idea of selectively caring. But I don't know what it means to say somebody selectively, quote unquote, cares if it's a genuine reflection of somebody's values, or you can't logically differentiate somebody delineating what values they hold versus what they self-deceptively hold. Come on, just look it up. Look what up? It's dude, you make a positive claim, you have the burden of evidence. I'm not going to do your work for you. Dan, even if you somehow prove that to be true, it would just amount to a tu quo qui fallacy. It wouldn't justify abusing and exploiting other animals. Dandelion gum, fuck yes, you have got it on lock. God, I can't thank you enough for that. Thank you for the sanity check. Tina tracked that message. OMG, it would take you 5 seconds to look it up. 5 seconds to look what up? It's not even clear what you're referring to. Also, not one of your arguments so far is valid at all to what I'm saying. I don't know if you're talking to Dandelion Gum, Tita, or me, but if you're referring to me, I'm refuting your attempt of making an argument, not really making an argument. If you mean it as a counter argument in a very, very loose sense, yeah, you could say that, but I'm just reflecting that you have the burden of proof. So if you're saying that's not valid to remind you that you have the burden of proof, you're brain dead. Also, not one of your provide the proof then. Tina has got it. Exactly. What in here? In the chat, provide evidence like there's not enough word count. What? It would take you 2 seconds to copy and paste a link, to name the source in question. If you actually had positive evidence, you'd be able to figure something. You could even join the Discord. You could copy and paste it in there where you have no character limits. Like, what are you you're making excuses, bruh. Just give it your best. All right. I never called anyone an idiot, but I get a strike. Well, yeah, you seem to be engaging in bad faith. People constantly ask you questions, and then you keep assuming that their intentions are poor. You're literally Stefan Molyneuxing. Proof, enjoy. What? Dan, you made a claim and then used rhetoric to tell the other person to look it up? That's so painful. Thank you, Kaido. Oh, my God. Kaido, I've just put an article for you all to read. What are you talking about? I don't see anything in here. Is there anything?
No.
Yeah, okay, he's full of shit. All right, second strike, Dan. Second strike. And that's probably why you lolled, because you know that you were just fucking memeing on us. I've put spaces in. It won't let me put the address. Join the Discord and paste the link, or just put the title, Dan. Maybe try putting the name and author in here. We can look it up. That's right, Tina. You can't say selectively if you don't know the trait that someone uses to give separate treatment to two beings. Exactly. Trait equalization, smooth brain nonsense. That's what somebody says who is having a strong sense of cognitive dissonance towards the realization that they can't name a trait or set of traits. Traits between humans and animals are not equal. Wait, what? That's a malformed syntax. What are you saying? Traits between humans and animals are not equal. Vegans don't even have to believe. Wait. First of all, if what you mean to say is that humans and animals are not equal. Vegans don't believe that and wouldn't have to believe that because of the point of moral sufficiency. Animals can have sufficient moral value such that they say it's wrong to not kill and eat them, even if they don't assign equal moral value. If what you're trying to say is that traits between them are not equal, no shit. If they had equal traits, meaning that they had all traits true of the one to be the other, it would just be the same being, dumbass. What should we call it? And as a thought experiment, it falls down immediately. Just stating that it does without explaining any sort of logic makes you freaking stupid. It's there. What are you, while you're talking? Dan, nobody sees it. J. Thompson, provide a source to prove what? Jay, we're talking about Dan's claim where he made the positive claim that he made a few positive claims. The two in question were one that bees would become. He implied bees would be endangered if people continue to eat avocados and almonds. And then he made another one about what is it that no, I think there were three. I think another one was that demand for almonds and avocados is increasing because of a rise in veganism. And I forgot the third one. I'll explain it. Didn't let me copy and paste the web address. Okay, yeah. Carnivores can be grateful, so people who kill and eat animals can be grateful for the life of an animal who they've sacrificed for their sustenance. Right, just like how a human can be grateful for the life of... a human can be grateful for the other human that they sacrificed for their sustenance. Valuing life doesn't mean there's no need to sacrifice it. Well, need is relative to a goal. If the goal is to say that you wanted to consume them, of course, you can uninterestingly say that you still value them or respected them. But if a trait true of your definition of respect or value or being grateful is to violate the being's right to life and autonomy and to slit their throat for a cheeseburger, that's fucking delusional. That's insane. That's absurd. You're crazy. Get a sanity check. Go fuck yourself, right? Unless you could actually name a trait or set of traits. And here's the thing. Name a trait that's true of an animal, which if true of a human would cause you to say that it is... that you are able to still be grateful for sacrifice the being in question as you do the animal, right? If you can't name it and it's a trait true of killing a human is that it would be inherently demented in order for you to do that, then that's just gonna be true of the animal unless you can name a trait or set of traits. Go and read my previous comments, you troll. Yeah, just calling me a troll is uninteresting, Sway. It won't allow links. Either join the Discord or write the name of the easiest thing, just write the name of the article. Like, everyone's waiting. In the meantime, I'm finally going to play this video
that would
again.
justify taking away something like the right to life from an animal. So can you name a morally substantive difference?
My question...
He said something like the right to life. I like to point to the right to life and autonomy because it concisely encapsulates everything that's done exploitatively to an animal, including rape, as well as anything else that's obviously against their own interest. I would definitely advise you, Richard, to say such as the right to life and autonomy. It's really quick, 2 words, and it gets a lot more done.
Question to you would be, if we
I just watched the Hassan Biker one.
swap all the traits true of animals to match those of humans, is there
Laughing though. Such a strong argument.
any trait that once switched
Oh, Felix said my emotional support, animal fried dead chicken. Would you give emotional support with human fried dead humans? Yeah.
would justify making humans into hamburgers?
Oh no, we're doing the name the trait game.
Wow, you know what's really funny, Hassan, that you understand you're reminded by the concept of name the trait, but you're not going to provide any sort of interesting answer to it that would cause you to not be logically consistent or absurd. Kevin says the trait doesn't exist. If you're saying the trait doesn't exist, first you said the trait was being human, now you're saying it doesn't exist. If you're saying the trait doesn't exist, and that means that there's no trait that's true of an animal, which if true of a human would cause you to say that the trait equalized being would lose value. Basically, you have a difference of attitude between humans and animals, but there's no trait morally differentiating them that's automatically logically incoherent. What the fuck does that mean? What does it mean to say that there is nothing differentiating the moral value between two beings, but yet there is something that but yet you have a difference of attitude such that it's okay to kill and eat the one, not the other? There has to be something that differentiates them logically in order for you to state that it is wrong to kill and eat the one and not the other. Otherwise, you would find either both or neither to be acceptable to consume. But congratulations, you've actually just reminded everybody that they ought be vegan, because vegans actually don't name a trait. They're consistent and non-absurd because they don't kill either being for food. The Andes is cold and barren. I don't know what that means. The trait is that they are different things. That's going to beg the question, what is the morally relevant difference or set of differences? You keep sidestepping this. Who's sidestepping what? The trait that can be changed, that's what you said. Well, of course people can change the trait, but but that's not indicative of what your real position is, right? You could throw shit at the wall and try to see what does or doesn't stick, but it's only going to be an indication that you're not actually trying to philosophically evaluate the reality of your position. So, wait, saying the trait doesn't exist, you're going to have to explain what that means. Are you saying that there is no trait that morally differentiates humans and animals such that it's okay to kill the one and not the other? The Andes are a mountain range. See previous comment. Yeah, I don't see anything about that.
This is like the impossible to defeat veganism argument.
But should we?
Well, impossible meaning subjectively to any sort of universal set of preferences that value human rights I would say this. Yes, it's impossible if all you mean is practically that to anybody who subjectively values human rights, that irreducibly values human rights, that they can't name a trait or set of traits logically differentiating humans and animals such that it's okay to kill and eat one, not the other. And the appreciation in question is indexed towards some kind of appreciation towards, a general appreciation for, like, you know, humans as a whole or something like that, or then yeah, I mean, you can create, you can try to create a distinction that you think is morally significant, but I think universally speaking, to be charitable to what Hassan probably means, like, he means like anybody who universally values anybody who universally values human rights cannot name a trait or set of traits, so they ought to go vegan, right? Which is really everybody on Earth. Kevin, we should call you on day. Explaining this to you is an uphill battle. God damn, Dandelion! Holy shite! Oh my god. Extreme psychological damage comes from cannibalism, as not in humans eating animals. Right. So if there was not psychological damage from consuming humans, would you say it's okay to kill and eat them for food? Okay, you're spamming that in the chat. Spam it one more time and you're gonzo sway. Previous comment. You're purposely not addressing this. Dude, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Somebody else, I think, made a point about cannibalism, and I don't think it was you, and I responded to that probably twice. So.
We continue to employ it so often, does it ever...
Possible to defeat veganism argument.
But should we continue to employ it so often? Does it ever actually work today?
Wait. When you say, does it ever actually work? We're going to need to understand what you mean by does it work, right? If your goal is to have people understand the logical consequences of their view, then having conversations or debates, or generally increasing awareness on Name the Trait, absolutely works, because it's just an entailment that informing people, educating them, by means of having discussions, increasing awareness on a certain subject matter, is going to mathematically speaking, increase the amount of instances where somebody understands logical consequences of their view. Broken logic is not logical. Sway, I don't know what the heck you're saying. You're going in timeout. So yeah, so the idea that the idea that you would be against more people understanding the logical consequences of your view is problematic for a lot of reasons. Jesus, I don't even know where to begin. I would say, so likely what Natalie is referring to is an idea that people are going through free Israel. Likely what Natalie is referring to is the idea that people are going to have psychological discomfort when they realize the logical consequences of their view are unpalatable. To assert that that's problematic is actually to assert that any other movement that we've had, such as slavery, sexism, so women not having rights, Jew hating, so on and so forth, it's to deny that those positions didn't suffer the same core problem which Name the Trade exposes, which is that there's some sort of inconsistency that people are abiding by with regards to their positions that causes them to fail to appreciate both sets of beings in question, whether it's the blacks versus whites, the Jews versus non-Jews, the women versus men, gays versus non-gays, the list goes on and on. But yeah, it's important to recognize like no social or ethical revolution happened through non-challenging comfort. Every moral advance I could ever think of, abolition, civil rights, feminism, and of course now with animal ethics, it came from the exposure of contradictions in the status quo. It's the concept of all men are created equal versus slavery, love thy neighbor versus sexism, kindness versus killing animals. These are all concepts that if you didn't expose the contradictions with regards to people's positions, you would be fucked. And people that were brave and unafraid to stand up for that, whether it was the Northerners, whether it was the the abolitionists, female rights defenders, those who fought for Jew rights, so on and so forth. These were all people that were brave enough to make a point that we have to expose contradictions. And every single one of those examples was a debate, right? Like it's just a debate is a forced reckoning between proclaimed value and violated principles or beliefs. And so if one accepts this model, right, that challenge alienates and it therefore fails, she's just making moral progress impossible, because progress is structurally uncomfortable. So go ahead and cope harder, Natalie.
Today I'm sharing why I hate Name the Trait. Why?
Oh God, well I already hate you. Yeah, this is just going to come down to a painful display of unsubstantiated positive claims, a lack of appreciation for the strongest logical foundation anybody could ever have in favor of animal rights, and a lot of rhetorical coping. So let's go, Natalie.
I think we should move on, and how...
Move on! Move on from logical consistency. Oh, Michael, what's up? Japanese. I'm not sure who spoke any sort of Asian, so I don't know why you said that, but anyways.
It harms and hinders the vegan.
The vegan. Wait, what's meant by vegan? Because if if anybody takes vegan to mean an appreciation towards animal rights, then, and somebody takes animal rights to be that to which ought to be defended as you would trade equal as humans, which I would challenge her on whether or not she would believe in defending animal rights as strongly as she would trade equal as humans. That would be my question. Natalie, if you ever watch this, what is... Just yapping after 2 words. Hey, Michael, so if you actually want to hop in and debate instead of cuck in the corner and try to talk crap, you're more than welcome to. Try to justify killing and eating animals for food. You're invited to name a trait that's true of an animal, which if true of a human would cause you to kill the trait equal as human as you do the animal. It's not yapping. I'm giving intellectual discourse here. If you think you have a logical error, if you think you could spot some sort of logical error with what it is that I'm saying, you're free to do that too. But don't be a cuck and just talk crap from the chat. But yeah, so anyways, what was I saying?
Why I think we should move on and how.
Oh, Natalie, if you're watching, right, would you believe in defending trait equalized humans as you would animals? If you want to play dumb on what that means, I'll just explain, Natalie. That means any trait or set of traits that somebody could name that they think serve to be a morally relevant symmetry breaker between humans and animals, such that they say it's okay to kill and eat the one, not the other. For example, intelligence, species, both, multiple other traits. Do you think that a being that starts off as a human and starts to have traits removed that somebody can name, and it could be any combination or any sort that you could think of, that all those types of beings that people can name, think of all the types of people that would name all sorts of traits, do you think that those trait equalized beings that people would claim are acceptable to kill and eat for food, that those beings should be defended, that animals should be defended as they would those trait equalized beings? If so, guess what? You're logically committed to name the trait without realizing it. Japanese is what you hear when the other person is speaking in a higher brainwave. Got him! The trait of having the DNA code of an animal. Wait, what? That... I asked what trait is true of an animal, which if it were true of a human. So you're saying that the trait of having animal DNA would... cause a human to lose moral value if it were to gain animal DNA. So Michael, would a human, or would a being who looks subjectively human but technically has cow DNA, would they be okay to kill and eat for food? Yes or no?
It harms and hinders the vegan message. Before we get into
It might harm or hinder your concept of animal rights, which is inferior to the to any name the trait defender, but it certainly doesn't harm or hinder anybody who believes that animal rights ought to be fought for as they would trait equal as humans. So fail.
the video, I want to clarify that I'm questioning the utility of name the trait in the
You know, it's funny that you say that you question the utility of name the trait, as if you are modest in your approach, but yet your video title is literally why you hate name the trait, right? That's not light language. Okay, the complete DNA code of an animal. Yeah, if they had the complete... Michael, if a being who subjectively looked identical to a human, but had the complete DNA of an animal, would they be okay to kill and eat for food as you do the animal, if that's the trait in question, right? Think really hard. I know you want to kill that being. Like, you remember, you're looking at this being that they look just like a human. They're so normal. You find out, doctor says, he comes out the room and he's like, hey, good news. They're technically a cow. Do you just get your fork and your knife and you just start running after them? No, I doubt that. This isn't how DNA works. What do you mean that's not how DNA works? Are you asserting that a trait true of DNA is that they would have a subjectively similar appearance to them? Because you're assuming that in the hypothetical, I'm not stipulating that the DNA is identical while they just didn't have something like plastic surgery or something like that, or had the shell of a human but still technically were had the DNA of a cow. It sounds like she doesn't like name the trait because she finds it difficult to explain. I don't know. I'm not defending her. No, I didn't say you are. Or no, I don't think you are. But no, I've heard about Natalie disliking Name the Trait for specific reasons, and she just indicated already that she finds there to be specific utility problems with it. But her video title is not agnostic, right? It's not like I have questions for Name the Trait, right? She just said, like she's already feeling the backlash before it even hits her. She's like, wait, guys. I'm not attacking Name the Trait. I know the video title is literally I hate Name the Trait. I know I said that we should move on from it, but I'm just asking about the utility. I'm just a little curious. I think you would have set up a conversation with Isaac if that were the case. I think you would have set up a conversation with Avi. And now guess what, Natalie? You're going to have to set up a conversation with me. Because if they're not going to fuck with you, this Name the Trait defender is absolutely going to take your questions. Although a person that was totally cow DNA would not be a person. Wait, I didn't assert they would be a person, though. I said if they looked subjectively similar. I don't think you understand what the word subjectively similar means. It doesn't entail that they possess the same DNA. It would be a cow and would look like one. If you're stipulating that the being has to look and possess the DNA of a cow in question, that's just going to be a shell morality position. So if your mother's consciousness were transferred inside of a cow, would it be okay to kill and eat her? Yeah, think really hard about that one.
Context of effective vegan advocacy, questioning the utility.
If it's a cow and looks like a cow, it's a cow. Wait, that the first part doesn't make any sense. If it's a cow, we're wondering what makes up a cow, right? Looks like a cow, it's a cow. Are you denying that for the sake of the hypothetical, we could stick your mom's consciousness inside of the cow and you would be saying it's okay to kill and eat her? Get on the barbecue. So your mom, so we could have infinite beings that all of humanity just gets their consciousness transferred over into cows. And if all but one person was still here, you'd say it's okay if they just infinitely holocausted them for food? Or what about an alternate universe? Let's say that was the case. Let's say the Earth duplicated, and then we had this Earth, where everyone's consciousness transferred over to a cow, and then in the other Earth they said, "Oh, great! Technically, they're inside the shell of a cow. It's great. It's time to kill and eat them for food."
Of Name the Trait. And before we get into the video, I want to clarify that I'm questioning the utility of Name the Trait and the.
Questioning is too light of a term, Natalie. You are attacking Name the Trait. My mother's consciousness cannot be transferred to a cow. That's called a hypo dodge, right? That's not interesting. If there was you could literally you could do it in a million ways if you're trying to be stubborn about it, but essentially, if it were the case that there was a cow that had the equivalent consciousness of a human, then you would have to say that it's okay, even though they had the consciousness of a human, but they had the DNA and they had the appearance of a cow. They were subjectively similar to a cow, that it's okay to kill and eat them. That is stupid thinking. You can do that. You can give somebody the reasoning that it would be okay to kill and eat them. And by the way, if you want the real world implications of what that looks like, that would look like you contributing towards killing cows, right? Because if the traits in question were that it's okay to kill and eat a cow merely because they lack they look like a cow and they have the DNA of a cow, then any cow you kill is going to be equal to a human that you would find acceptable to kill. So if you don't actually find it acceptable to kill and eat that trait equalized being, you're going to have to back off the position, because otherwise the real world implications would be you killing and eating the cow. It won't. No, you can't do it in a million ways. Do you think I mean, Kevin, that you can literally scientifically in the world, or do you think I mean it is logically the case that we can give a thought experiment where if your mother's consciousness were transferred into a cow, that yes, you could say that, you could say it's person A, person B, person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 1 million, it would still be the case. California's almond and avocado industries are causing catastrophic bee mortality, up to 62% hive losses in recent seasons, threatening pollination systems, food insecurity, ecological stability. So that says nothing about if bees are dying because people are buying avocados and almonds. That also says nothing about a rise in veganism causing more bees to die. No, trade equalization doesn't exist. Doesn't exist as what? As a thought experiment? It absolutely does. Like, what? What do you mean it doesn't exist? It conceptually exists. What are you talking about? If you mean in the real world, nobody's fucking saying that. You know what the real world implication is of the trade equalization process? That whatever your answer is to the hypothetical, it would be what you do to animals, right? So, for example, if you said the trait that made it acceptable to kill and eat, if you said the trait that made it acceptable to kill and eat animals and not humans was intelligence, and you said, but that doesn't exist, even if we didn't have severely mentally handicapped humans, let's say no human had ever been severely mentally handicapped before, any animal which was being holocausted for food would just be the being in question that you say is wrong to kill and eat, if your answer is that it's actually wrong. What a bunch of bullshit. If that's not an argument, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. Wait. If we were back in the 1850s and somebody who was in favor of black rights said, hey, white man, what if your consciousness was transferred inside that of a black person? Would you be okay to enslave and whip and rape and remove their freedom? And they were to go, if, what a bunch of bullshit. That's not an argument. Yeah, it is, because every black person is just the example of what you would, if you were answering it intellectually honestly, the white person whose consciousness was transferred to the black person, right? It's literally the being in question to which you're too scared to admit that you would find it to be morally unacceptable to violate their rights, but you don't want to admit, right?
Context of effective.
Oh, Michael says, based on atheist materialism, consciousness is an emergent property of the physical mind. So at that point, it would just be a cow. Wait. Materialism consciousness? Oh, I don't know what the fuck you're saying. If you're saying that your mom would be a cow, even though her consciousness was just put inside the shell of a cow, that is to say, their body, then all I can do is laugh at how ridiculous that is. If again, what a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, you're no different than a slave owner who's saying, if again, the white person's brain can't be transferred into the black person's body. Look at how stupid that is. You're just not engaging with the logical consequences of your view. All while the equivalent or the morally sufficient issue still exists in modern day as it would have back then, of you're still enslaving black people and raping them and causing them to lose their rights. You don't avoid that by means of just restating that it's an if, right? Because the logical consequences do exist in the real world. I refer you again to the Andes. Well, I refer you again to when Dandelion reminded you that talking to you is an uphill battle. And I missed this. Kevin, it's a hypothetical. Hypotheticals are very important in analyzing morality, so we don't have to actually commit to atrocities. Beautifully said, Dandelion. Props to you. Thank you so much.
To vegan advocacy, not philosophical debates. I have seen YouTubers to vegan advocacy, not philosophical debates.
Yeah, so this is going to be the sophistry pathway, right? It's not that she's trying to get out of, she already knows she'd be in hot water if she tried to say that there was a philosophical problem with it, right? And I wouldn't expect her to necessarily. In fact, I did expect her to try to make a point about the effectiveness as it exists for advocacy. But as I stated earlier, if somebody were to try to say that the concept of realizing contradictions was problematic, I doubt she would commit to that having been a problem when we were trying to get slave owners to recognize contradictions, men to recognize contradictions, Jew haters to recognize contradictions, because they were beating women, burning Jews, and raping and enslaving black people. That was a philosophy that had to be brought up via debate in order for people to realize it was wrong. The underlying logic may not always come necessarily in the form of a straightforward formal debate format where somebody's at a podium or somebody's on a computer or somebody's doing this or somebody's doing that, but it does have to prop up where the logic is effectively relayed to somebody as a realization that the contradiction is unacceptable to somebody's view. That, once again, is a concept of progress being uncomfortable. That's if and this is all it's going to come down to. If this is just going to be a point of her disliking the concept of, you know, uncomfortability, that's going to have insane fucking implications to it. But we'll get into that. Oh, Michael says the trait is human consciousness then. Wait, is it just human consciousness, or is it human consciousness plus the DNA, plus being subjectively similar to an animal, right? But I would ask you to ask yourself what is meant by human consciousness, because likely all you're trying to say is the intelligence level of that to which a human would possess. And so try to define what you think is meant by human consciousness so that we can begin to figure out what trait you're trying to plug in here.
I have seen YouTubers like Ask Yourself and
God, I don't know why Isaac ever used that photo. I'm sorry. I don't mean, I'm not, Isaac, I'm not attacking you, man. But like, I have to say, I've been meaning to say this for years. Like, it really looks like
not philosophical debates. I have seen
it looks like you're sniffing your fingers. Like, I'm just gonna say that, okay? Like, it's just funny. Like,
YouTubers like Ask Yourself and Vegan Gains wield name the trait effectively to highlight the inconsistencies of their debate opponents. However, in street outreach,
she said that so begrudgingly. God, run it back.
YouTubers like Ask Yourself and Vegan Gains wield name the trait effectively to highlight.
Like, listen to her gritting her teeth. Wields name the trait effectively. Like, I don't even believe she opened her teeth when she was speaking there.
Like the inconsistencies of their debate opponents. However, in
even the little S at the end. Natalie, stop lying, bruh. I get it. You fucking hate Name the Trait. You named the video title that. You couldn't help but tell the world that you thought that, right? No, but it's just funny because like you're doing this really cuck shit where like you claim that you give a little to get a lot. So you're trying to be like, oh, like, don't get me wrong, like, you know, some people deploy it well, but like 99% of the time it sucks because my anecdote. Let's see. Here we go.
In street outreach, it just doesn't work.
Well, there's too many problems with this. Number one, let's go through it. The idea that people that you're talking to the streets are going to the idea that people in general understand the scope of their preferences, specifically that they're going to be persuaded by a certain position, is not very likely. In fact, people typically have an incentive to not tell you the truth of what it is that they're feeling or attempting to reconcile inside of their head logically. But that's distinct of how they interpret their own thoughts. So for example, if somebody were to say, hey, you just made me feel really uncomfortable right now. You know what? Ego death. You got me. Oh man, yeah, that's right. I'm for animal rights now. No one's gonna do that, right? Like, practically speaking, People are going to just say they don't respect it, they don't play dumb, that they don't understand, that there's some kind of like issue with it. But in reality, the party in question is not actually reconciling some kind of realization that they have an issue with it. All the while, the sleeper effect is going to go on, which is a psychological mechanism that exists when your brain constantly tries to make sense of a message that it doesn't have an answer towards. And if it's unable to produce an answer against it, your brain will literally create more thoughts about the thing in question. And that increased stimuli, statistically increasing the amount of instances where somebody thinks about their contradictory position, only helps animal rights, right? So that uncomfortability is exactly where we want people to be. Faster Toys says, hey. Yo, what's up, Faster Toys? Earlier, you tested consciousness as a holistic thing. I don't know what you mean by that. In itself, that could be transferred, but now we have to break it into discrete elements. To help me understand, what is the trait for plants? Wait, now you sound like you're getting bad faith. When you say we have to break it into discrete elements, a couple things. I easily transferred over the trait of human consciousness as you understand it for, let's just say, your mom. But that doesn't mean that when I ask you to, I asked you two things. I asked you one, what's the, I asked you one, is it is it a trait stack of 3? Is it human consciousness, human consciousness, the shell of a human, and the DNA of a human? You didn't answer yes or no to that. So I'm still waiting for an answer. Number one. Number two, yes, I'm going to ask you what's meant by human consciousness, because now if you do specify that the trait if you're going to specify that you specifically do care about human consciousness as the morally relevant trait, now that I'm going to analogize the trait as being the specific morally relevant symmetry breaker, whereas I was using it not as the morally relevant symmetry breaker because you didn't name human consciousness as the morally relevant symmetry breaker, you only named human consciousness you only named everything but human consciousness, so I transferred it over, and I transferred over with an example of something that we wouldn't deny is human consciousness. But I'm going to ask you, for example, I could just plug it in and assume, but that wouldn't be very smart. I'm gonna ask you what you conceptualize when you think of human consciousness, now that we're going to deep dive into it because you've named it as the specific trait. Whether or not it's a trait stack or stands on its own. And because what's going to be important is if you conceptualize human consciousness as that to which possesses a certain level of intelligence, then severely mentally handicapped people are going to be on the table, right? So if it was the case that your mom had the reduced reduced intelligence of to the point where she had that the equivalent intelligence of a cow when she was born, and then had her brain that consciousness transferred into a cow, would you still call it human consciousness, right? So it's going to be important for understanding what trait or set of traits it is. You really should care about what values that you hold. So that's the point of understanding the position. And to help you understand what is the trait for plants, I think you mean what's the morally relevant symmetry breaker between plants and animals, such that it's okay to kill one, to eat the one, not the other, and it's sentience. Deep shit tonight, huh? Maybe you consider it that. I mean, it's normal for Saturday for me, where I'm just combating a shit ton of sophists, some trolls, some not. I wait for somebody to come on to Discord, or multiple people, hopefully, to come on to debate. I had somebody in earlier and they didn't want to come in. That was a real shame, but they started to cuck out and just deployed something about the Bible. May I ask what human consciousness has got to do with eating animals? Oh, yeah. So Faster Toys. What happened was Michael over here was trying to answer name the trait, right? Name the trait is a consistency test, and what it does is it asks people what trait is true of an animal, which if true of a human would cause you to say it's okay to kill and eat the trait equalized human as you would the animal. Okay, so basically, what's the morally relevant symmetry breaker or breakers between humans and animals, such to that you'd find it okay to kill and eat the one, not the other? And so I asked him what the traits were. He named human DNA. I gave him a reductio on human DNA. He then to a being that had was subjectively similar to a human, but did not have human DNA. He said that they had to look like a human as well, or that he thought that DNA entailed. He thought that human DNA entailed them looking like a human as well, which is not technically the same thing, but I granted that the traits he was attempting to make a trait stack, and that I was going to entertain said trait stack. So I charitably gave it to him that the being in question looked like a cow, or had the shell of a cow, but their mom's consciousness was transferred into a cow, right? The shell, the body of a cow, and if it would be okay to kill and eat them. They said, okay, well, fine. I see what you're getting at, essentially. They wouldn't hop on voice. It was really shameful. But they said the trait is human consciousness. I then asked them what human consciousness was because they're naming it as the trait. I think they failed to realize that I only didn't ask them what was meant by, or I didn't deploy a definition of human consciousness originally when I gave their mom as an example, because it was undoubtable that they already granted value to their mom. They then failed to realize that, appreciate that that was not required to fully outline the meaning of human consciousness when I just when I gave the reductio of the trait equalization process that they were at, where their mom's consciousness was transferred, that I know they value, was transferred into a being that I know they don't value, or the body of a being that I know they don't value, I should say. And they try to criticize me for compartmentalizing the understanding of what the meaning of human consciousness was. But after that, I think that's roundabout when you came in and I tried to explain to them again. And so that's where we got with that. But then I gave them a realization that if they conceptualize human consciousness as an idea of something that I anticipate they understand, because I really don't know what it would mean otherwise, other than to say having the average intelligence expected of a human, then what if it were the case that their mom was born severely mentally handicapped, right? And then had their consciousness transferred over into a cow? Would it then be okay to kill and eat them for food? Like, what if there was an alternate world where their mom's consciousness was transferred over was where she was born mentally handicapped and then her consciousness was transferred over to a cow? Would it be okay to kill and eat her for food? So we're using philosophical arguments. You could call it philosophical. I mean, I guess technically in the field of philosophy, there's not really an important distinction there, because like all arguments that we're going to investigate are inherently philosophical. But if you mean to say that they are arguments that pop up within the realm of philosophy, then yeah. It's not socially acceptable to eat the cow person. Right, so if we factored out that you can get away with it without it being socially unacceptable, would you find it okay to eat the quote-unquote cow person? Oh, Michael said, if a human had the level of sentience of a plant, you would be okay with eating it. That's not a sentience level if they lack sentience. That's a category error. Well, it's basically thought experiments. Vegan 2.0 versus animal abuse. Basically thought experiments. Right, yeah, it is a thought experiment, name the trait. Correct, yeah. Dandelion gum. It's also another tautology to pick human consciousness. The trait is human property. X is just a roundabout way of saying because they're humans to the question of why not humans. Well, not necessarily. It depends on what somebody means by it, right, Dandelion gum? Maybe you found in your history of deploying name the trait, or maybe just understanding or hearing name the trait conversations, that people do mean that, but it's not the case that somebody necessarily has to commit to the trait. The trait is human property, or sorry, because they're humans or that they possess human DNA. I actually find that a lot of people mean that they have the intelligence level of your, or the average intelligence level of a human. And so that's why I specify that what if they were to have the average intelligence level of an animal, would it still be human consciousness? Some people try to get into like a deep dive of it's still human consciousness because they've assigned some sort of virtue to it, but that's still actually just going to be a shell morality position, right? Like we're just going to say, okay, so, if it were like it were the case that yes, they just had if you had two beings and one was your mom who's severely mentally handicapped and the other was a cow's intelligence or consciousness, and they experienced the world in identical ways, and you said you only valued the human based one because you believe there was some sort of virtue that like God assigned or something like that, it would just be insane because like to the beings themselves they're experiencing the world in identical ways. I've never seen this channel before. As a disclaimer, I'm an atheist, dead animal eater. No, I'm not saying you have. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate that. I thought I kind of remember your username, but I could be wrong. As a disclaimer, I'm an atheist. Yeah, I don't believe in God. We're on the same page, bud. Maybe you probably mean atheist. Statistically speaking, you probably mean it as agnostic, because believing that you have an argument specifically for that God doesn't exist is extremely unconvincing. But I don't want to derail because this is mainly an animal rights focused live stream. And then dead animal eater. Right. I hope that you stick around and you see every reason to, well, I hope you see the strongest reason to not kill and eat animals for food is because you cannot name a trait that you yourself find morally acceptable, of a relevant distinction between humans and animals such that it's okay to eat the one, not the other. I agree. I was just responding to the guy in the other chat that said the trait was specifically human consciousness. Oh, no, sure. And I even think with, like, him, he might not even be thought out on what the trait, human consciousness is. I do suspect he probably meant it to be something to the effect of the intelligence level. But to be fair, I mean, he's probably just throwing fucking words around, so it could be either. No, you're wrong. DF, I'm wrong about what? If you want to actually, there's a Discord link in the description. You're free to hop on and join the live stream and, tell the chat what you think I'm wrong about. But I have a challenge for you. What trait is true of an animal, which if true of a human, would cause you to say that it's okay to eat the trait equal as human as you would the animal? Okay. So basically I'm just going to ask you what the morally relevant distinction is between humans and animals such that it's okay to kill and eat the one, not the other.
The goal of the philosophical debate is to test logical consistency.
So, no, that's actually extremely fucking bad faith. I would never say, for example, Natalie, the goal of the name the trait in the slave context is to just test philosophical consistency. It's not just something as frivolous as to test logical consistency. I think the only motivation why somebody would reasonably deploy name the trait, whether it be from Joey Carbstrong, and even when Isaac was starting out, was to convince people that it was wrong to kill and eat animals for food. I know that Isaac has been on the record for saying that he doesn't have the same goals as a vegan activist because he's not convinced of the effectiveness of, name the trait as it stands for convincing people to go vegan. I mean this in the most respectful way possible. I actually don't think he's just very well thought out on the matter. There's two things. I think he's not well thought out on the matter of the concept of the effectiveness, because I think that's a category error to the concept of name the trait convincing somebody to go vegan, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But I actually think that he, for a very long time, and what I do believe, from what I've observed, created the motivation, and statistically speaking, what would be most likely to make somebody desire to deploy name the trait would be because they thought that it was a reason to get somebody to stop contributing to the Holocaust. And I've seen a lot of examples of that, whether or not he said it's like insulting to the victims to not call it a Holocaust or so on and so forth. But No, it's not a fucking debate, bro. Just trying to test if you're consistent for some frivolous matter, some Lauren Bash ass point, Natalie. You're so bad faith. You're so fucking bad faith. I don't think any less than when Frederick Douglass delivered his speech, "What to the slave is the 4th of July," on the 5th of July. That he didn't care about the beliefs of blacks, even though he actually was deploying the core logic behind name the trait, Natalie. Let's see. Michael, check my last response. Meant sentience, not consciousness. I know. I said it's a category error because having the sentience level of something that doesn't possess sentience is nonsensical. It's not that connotes that that plants have a sentience level, right? That as if they have some sort of stimuli of a subjective experience when they don't. I saw Piers Morgan debating a vegan and it wound me up. There was so much unscientific shit from Piers. Piers is, oh god, I can't wait to get to the Piers Morgan saga. I actually want to do a moral mic drop episode, diss rap against him one of these days. That would be great. I've got a list of people on my fucking hit list. By the way, shameful YouTube. They didn't approve my ad because they thought it promoted violence or imagery. I would love to NTT, the team from Google or YouTube or whatever the fuck, and just ask them, what trait is true of horror movie advertisements, violent movie advertisements, so on and so forth, that if true of my ad would cause you to say that, or what traits are true of my ad, which if true of the violent horror movies or action movies would cause you to say that those ads cannot be displayed as mine is not. It's clearly just art. It's just entertainment. It's not actually promoting violence. But anyways, yeah, Piers is such rage bait, man. He just does it for fucking views. I can't stand the guy. But yes, he makes a lot of unscientific claims. He tries to pivot from science and ethics back and forth. He's so bad faith. He stays ungrounded on purpose. What's a trait that allows you to advocate for human abortion and or have an abortion? Wait, this isn't about abortion. I don't know where you're coming from, Tom. What are your thoughts on hunting? In the modern age, there was mechanized slaughter on an industrial scale, which wasn't available back then. Faster. I assume you mean hunting like in the typical sense? Like, you mean to say people that go out and murder innocent deer or rabbits or any other beautiful fucking creatures? Well, I should say that are not predators, because actually I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with people killing predators. Well, my thoughts are that it's wrong. If it's wrong to hunt and kill, people that are not killing other beings, right? So, not, it would be a position that says it's not problematic to kill predators, but it would be problematic to kill, the innocent animals like deers, rabbits, if you kill birds or squirrels for game, fish, so on and so forth. If you wouldn't do it to a human, right, what's the trait or set of traits that would cause you to say it's more acceptable to do it to the animal? In the modern age, there is mechanized slaughter on an industrial scale, which wasn't available back then. Right, but hunting and industrial holocausting can both be issues, right? Piers is such a bad actor. He lives in dishonesty. Absolutely, Giannis. Couldn't agree more. Tom, when the hell did Cold advocate for abortions? Yeah, what the fuck? It's like I said, I agree. I don't believe in God, and he tuned in and was like, I bet he's a leftist. I bet he's pro-choice. Yeah, dude, you have no fucking clue whether I'm pro-life or pro-choice. But try again. I think hunting is natural. Wait, you don't want to make an appeal to nature fallacy, though, right? The fucked up shit we do to cows today isn't. Wait, but faster. You understand that what is natural is not an indication of what is good, right? Like, diseases are natural. Pandemics are natural. obviously natural disasters, or wildfires, hurricanes, earthquakes are all natural, yet we try to avoid them because they cause some an action that we do not prefer the outcome of and we find to be wrong, right? Being gay is natural. If you just reduce it down to a sexual tendency that you primitively had, sure. But yeah, you wouldn't want to commit to an appeal to nature fallacy. You're so annoying. I'm back, motherfucker. No shit, we still here. Oh, well, I don't remember. You're like vague, guys. Like whenever you sophist pop into my mind, like I only just know you generically. I sincerely do not remember who the fuck you are. Like, I don't remember. Even my wife is like, "Who the fuck are you?" and she watches the chat on the side and like stays keen on that. Like, I can you remind me which loser you are? Question: are other animals justified in eating animals? If so, what is the trait other animals have that allows them to eat other animals that humans do not have? No. So I'm logically consistent on that. If it's wrong for a mentally handicapped person to kill other people, then it's wrong for a coyote to kill a cat or dog, or of course a person. I don't mean to sound rude, Drawers, but like you came on pretty strong with the idea of, if not, what is this? I think you should have been more skeptical. I am not a brain dead vegan who just that is to say self-identifies as that to a person who believes in animal rights, but then doesn't have an answer for if it's wrong for predators to kill magnitudes of other innocent animals. Yes, it's wrong that a coyote will eat a fucking cat or a dog or whatever the fuck. There's not an alternative solution that makes it practical to let's say domesticate these animals like there exists an option for, like, let's say a dog. Like, for example, like I've told the story before, Drawers, but I had a dog who killed one of my cats, and she was fine. My dog was fine with this cat for years. It was so surprising that it happened. Still traumatized about it, but yeah, I would never say as a non-moral agent it's okay to kill her or something like that when there's the means of just putting her in a home where she's just fine, because she's not, unlike a coyote, unlike a lion, unlike a bear, unlike a tiger, unlike a cougar, unlike a million other fucking predators, she's actually able to take commands from people, and as long as she's separated from smaller animals such as cats, she won't cause any other rights violations. And that's going to be true of mentally handicapped people as well. Like, if there was a dangerous mentally handicapped person, I wouldn't want to fucking kill them. I'd want to put them inside of a home where they can be taken care of and just guarded, right? So yeah. I'd put the argument forward that we'd end up higher on the food chain. Wait, okay, the food chain justifies a Holocaust as well. So if humans were lower on the food chain, would it be acceptable to kill and eat humans for food? So what should the lions do? Make pancakes? No, we should literally kill lions until we can come up with a feasible solution to, I don't know, genetically modify them, or do some sort of technological process that would advance the species or something like that, so on and so forth. Jesus gave his body for us to eat. What? Wait, what the? Are you trying to use that as symbolism for killing and eating animals? I have no. Are you saying Jesus literally is a symbol of? Okay. Since humans evolved, they have used animal products descriptively, right? Humans have also raped each other, enslaved each other, beat each other, discriminated against each other because of sex, ethnicity, sexual preference, so on and so forth. Are those things acceptable? Descriptively, what humans have done doesn't tell us what we prescriptively, right, ought to do. We use bone and sinew to sew skins together. It helped us to inhabit new continents. Right, and if the only way to inhabit new continents was to kill other humans, I doubt you'd be for it, right? Wait, kill the lions? Whoa. Well, that's not such a crazy position, right? Like, if you had humans that were not able to be domesticated and this subspecies of humans, was a non-moral agent that could not be negotiated with, and they, lacked the, or just that they can't be negotiated with, and we can't domesticate them, then obviously if there's no practical alternative to, saving these other creatures than to kill them, I think we do the same thing that a fucking cop does when he sees a mentally handicapped person with a gun just going like this to people in the middle of the streets, and he shoots them. Like, it's sad, it's not fun, right? Like, but obviously that's what you do. So kill the sharks. Well, I'm not sure about the current status of the fish that sharks eat that are or are not predators, but it's just going to be a conditional on the answer, right? If it's the case that the sharks are, causing some sort of ultimate net rights violations or suffering that are disagreeable, then yeah. Bro, 3 a.m. where I am. Nice channel, night people. Well, thanks a lot for tuning in, Faster. It seems like, you've opened up your mind a little bit, and I appreciate that. Yeah, have a good one. Are you avoiding my question now that it removes the category error on levels of consciousness? I don't think you can answer this. Michael, I've not seen any other answer other than the last one where you spoke about the concept of sentience being present within something that doesn't have sentience. I'll scroll up, but check my last response. Meant sentience, not consciousness. Right, sentience is not true of plants. I just take it to mean one and the same. Earlier treated consciousness as a transfer. Now we have to break it into discrete. Yeah, this is all the same shit I read earlier. I don't, Michael, I don't know what you're saying. If you want to try to explain it, please come to the Discord, because I don't see any other message, and I've run through this already multiple times. Animals don't kill and eat each other for fun. It's for survival. Right. I mean, if mentally handicapped people killed other people for survival, no. Meaning your name, N-O-E. Is that how you say it? No? Like, just no? Burnaby. Let's just say Burnaby. That's easier. Burnaby, presumably you would say that's wrong, though, right? What's the last time you had a dead cow burger? If that's your like super MGTOW way of asking me how long I've been, logically consistent on trait equalize humans as I have animals, aka what someone might call vegan, it's been about 11 years. Since you believe that other animals, but if you mean when's the last time I had something that's identical to the taste of a cheeseburger, that would be, I don't know, maybe like about a year ago when I went to the vegan camp out. I think I had a cheeseburger there. No, maybe I didn't. I don't know. Maybe it's been about a year or two since I had something that's morally identical and makes it absurd to, kill beings for taste pleasure. Only rather adds to the absurdity. Since you believe that other animals aren't justified in eating animals, well, it's weird to say aren't justified, right? Because I'm not ascribing, what I'm not doing, Drawers, is I'm not trying to say that they are doing something wrong as in their choosing as agents, just to be clear. But if you're understanding it in the correct way that I mean it, that they're doing an unpreferred action to other agents, right, to minds that have a subjective experience, right, then yes, hopefully you find it to be wrong too. I hope you actually engage with your own view instead of just trying to put me in the hot seat, right? Ask yourself if there are mentally handicapped people attempting to kill other people, right, regardless of whether or not they were, regardless of whether or not they had to do it for survival. Presumably you find that to be wrong, right? Even if all humans stopped eating animals, wouldn't there still be an animal holocaust of predators killing prey? Well, I don't know what problem you're trying to point to here, Drawer. So it seems like there's two. I'll try to. I'll be charitable towards two things you could be saying. One is you could be saying that, wouldn't I not be solving the global issue of animals having their rights violated to some extent if everyone stopped killing and eating animals for food because predators exist. That's true, right? Just as much as how, like, if in my local city everyone was like killing and raping children, but if everyone in my city stopped, you know, everyone in like else in America was still doing it, it wouldn't change that you wouldn't want my city to do it, regardless of if other cities you knew would still do it, right? So like there, you just don't want to make the mistake, most importantly, of conflating solving the global issue with solving the personal contribution issue or some sort of reduction in question. And it would be a massive reduction, obviously, right? Like if we didn't, you know, breed cows, chickens, pigs, so on and so forth into existence, there would be such less suffering in the world. Like you would never justify, for example, Jews getting murdered and having horrible things happen to them just because even if the Holocaust were to end as it did, well, we're not going to solve the global issue of murder existing, right? So you hopefully you appreciate that. And if you're, what was the other thing I was going to say? Would there still be, oh yeah, I mean, of course, descriptively there would be, but because one issue is not necessarily the same as the other. But should we, at that point, separately speaking now, should we make an effort to eliminate that as much as possible? Absolutely. And by the time, you know, that we get to the point where humans care enough about animal rights as they would treat equal as humans, I'm sure we'll have advanced enough to, you know, one, be able to genetically modify predators to not be murderous towards other beings. Or we could evolve them in some way or like do something like that. But with that, just shy of having that as an option, obviously, while we wait in the interim, right? Like it wouldn't be the case that if there was like, you know, some sort of better solution 1,000 years ago to something, I don't know, like we didn't have medications 1,000 years ago that would save people's lives. Like, that wouldn't mean that, you know, just because you let somebody die years ago, point by analogy that, you know, that you wait for more people to die. I'm not articulating this well, but I'm just trying to say that like the best thing we can do now, just shy of technology, is that, you know, unfortunately, begrudgingly, we take these non-agents' lives. It's not something you happily do per se. I mean, there's a happy aspect to it, which is saving the innocent beings, but it's not like you get off on the virtue of the non-agents dying per se. Is my comment not coming through? If sentience is the deciding factor, anything without sentience is moral to eat. Dead humans do not have sentience, therefore they are moral to eat in your worldview. No, not necessarily, right? That could be one stipulation. You could also say that the virtue of having once had sentience is also wrong. You do appreciate that, right, Michael? Like, for example, you presumably find it wrong to kill and eat humans for food, right? And you might, I'm sure you probably find it wrong to kill and eat dogs or cats for food, even though those are animals. And, you know, if the trait was merely just having been an animal, then you'd have to find that those beings acceptable to kill and eat. Or sorry, not kill and eat, to eat even though they're already dead, like at the side of the road. But no, I appreciate virtue as well. I know there are vegans out there who don't appreciate virtue, and that sounds really ridiculous to me, but if you would maintain some sort of virtue towards, you know, a human who is dead, I don't know why you wouldn't maintain that for an animal. So I actually am fully against vegans who aren't logically consistent on appreciating virtues as they are, for animals as they are treated equal as humans. I got some chats going on in bold, so forgive me, guys. I'm trying to catch up. What an awful point. Steven, so if you think you have something that's interesting to contribute, hop your happy ass into the Discord. Stop cucking in the corner. I just can't, I gotta rant for a second. I can't believe that, like, I have so many people chirping, you know, in my chat that are pro animal murder, And they have so much shit to say over text but not over voice. And Parker and Dean, the political YouTubers, have people lined up, thousands of people watching all the time, and they just get these MAGA supporters lining up left and right. I know they're more popular, but like statistically speaking, even though I have so many less viewers, like I have people that are motivated to debate. And I had a lot of people on the first day, and even second day I had about, I think, 2 people as well. Maybe everyone saw my debates and got fucking scared, especially after the new one that I uploaded. Yeah, shout out to the guy that justified taking advantage of physically handicapped humans. Anyways, that's all just to say, Steven, come on, join the Discord, man. Like, it's so uninteresting to just chirp from the comments. Like, it's not, no. The problem is the moral equivalence you place on eating food. Don't know what you mean by moral equivalence. Moral equivalence is not required in order to appreciate animal rights. If all you mean by moral equivalence is that somebody has to view the rights of animals as tantamount to that of humans in order to not kill and eat them, in order to not kill and eat animals as they do humans, that doesn't logically follow. There's something called moral sufficiency. And, just as much as you wouldn't give a severely mentally handicapped person the right to vote, but you'd at least give them the right to life and autonomy. Just like how Einstein and a baby might not have identical moral value, but both have sufficient moral value to deserve the right to life and autonomy. Just like how $5 is greater than $2, but both are enough to buy a can of Coke. Point by analogy, something being greater than something else doesn't invalidate or push something beneath a certain threshold, obviously, right? So that doesn't follow. Watch my video titled Stop This Conflation, Moral Sufficiency versus Equality. They would eat you if put in the same position, would it where it would be a necessity. Right, so would a mentally handicapped person who has the same primitive defaults to that of an animal. Would it be okay to eat a human who has the tendency to want to eat other humans? Or would you say that them literally lacking any fucking agency says nothing about if you should try to, what's this concept of like punishment or like fucking revenge you're trying to get? Like, hey, sometimes my cat, when they jump up on me, they scratch me and they don't mean to, they don't realize it, but I have like marks on my thigh right now, and you know what, I'm just gonna fucking scratch him with a fucking knife because, like, I mean, he would jump up on me again and scratch me again if it were up to him. And it's like, he's not, that's misleading. That makes it sound like they are deciding to as an agent. These animals who would eat me or you aren't deciding to with some sort of concept of, despite it being wrong or understanding what I'm doing, I'm going to consume you anyways. They're just not in realization that there's anything wrong or right or anything at all, right? There's no concept of morality. I believe the correct term is, to them, it's amoral, because there's no concept of morality applied. But if that's an incorrect term, I'll at least say they don't have morals. They're not agents. The entire foundation of this argument is illogical. If we reduce herd population, agriculture would collapse because of lack of fertilizer. Wait, what? If we reduced herd population, you mean agriculture even with regards to fruits and vegetables would collapse because of lack of fertilizer? That's a positive claim. If you think you have any sort of reason to believe that we wouldn't be able to grow crops because we don't have the shit of cow manure, then, I mean, just post the evidence for that. There's no reason to believe that. There's literally all vegan farms that exist that use green manure, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And obviously, I mean, humans would, if there were any sort of technical issues of scaling up to any degree for any of this, we would come up with alternatives and invest in those. Kind of like how we do in the treat equal as human context. The premise that we reduce this argument to a suffering exposition is illogical. I don't know what you mean by a suffering exposition. You're going to have to be clear on what you mean by that. Jews equal chicken. Nobody said that a Jew is equal to a chicken. I already cleared up the conflation between equality versus sufficiency. Try harder. Maybe you should have this talk with the AIDS virus or COVID. What? I have no idea what you're attempting to index that towards. Furthermore, a global undiversified diet would place more stressor on land usage. So again, if you think you have any positive evidence towards these unsubstantiated claims, you're more than free to. But as a conditional, if it were the case that there was any world where what you were claiming was true, where there was more stress on land usage because if we were to not kill and eat humans, would you be for that world? Yeah, I doubt it. So we're switching from the earlier trait of sentience to has ever had sentience. No, it's not switching the traits, right? You're asking if I appreciated, if that was the only thing that I appreciated. But obviously the context that you gave for consuming a plant was just simply defined as not having had sentience. So yeah, I mean, that's not a switchover. That's just a further explanation of the view. Remember, you still haven't reconciled if, you'd kill and eat your mom's consciousness if she was born with the average intelligence level of a cow and then had said consciousness transferred over to the body of a cow. But complain to me more about how, because I appreciate the virtue of a being once having had sentience, that it's problematic. Okay, then a person who is born never having sentience, will the trait shift again? You mean to say, is it anencephaly? I think it's anencephaly, right?
They don't have like a brain.
Yeah, they don't have like a brain. They're born without a brain. I think it's anencephaly. I think it's anencephaly. Well, no, I find that to just be disgusting, right? Like I mean, yeah, I would find it just to be a disgusting thing. If you're asking if I find it to be immoral, I would find it to be probably virtuistically problematic to consume something that's so identical to looking like a being. I would question some sort of practicality of like psychopathy, as I would, like somebody who wants to eat the flesh that tastes like a cat or the flesh that tastes like a dog. I think that that's disgusting virtuistically, but it doesn't increase demand or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's still problem. I find it virtuistically problematic. Yes, if necessity requires. Yes, wait. Yes, what if necessity requires? Anne, your cat is a killer. Let it freak you out. No, it really doesn't. I mean, any less than how my severely mentally handicapped little brother is a killer, quote unquote, where that's such sophistry that's meant to connotate, right, that we that the being in question is an agent that gets off on doing something immoral, rather than, or has an immoral view, rather than they are a non-agent in the first place and they do something that agents find to be to find the outcome to be wrong. So no, I mean, it doesn't freak me out when a severely mentally handicapped person might stomp on a cat's tail and make them screech. It makes me think that it's sad that they would do that action, but it wouldn't make me angry or disgusted or freaked out about the mentally handicapped person. What would freak me out is if somebody tried to justify somebody, that mentally handicapped person doing it just because they're mentally handicapped. What a proverbial hand wave to my argument about animal agricultural scaling. Well, you made positive claims and didn't actually back it up. So once again, try harder. And again, you're welcome to join the Discord. You're one to talk about hand waving when you literally cuck in the corner and do not join the fucking chat. Right. They would just eat you. So if we wouldn't eat human meat, we would by necessity, you said need, require to eat them. Wait, what? Lions would eat me, so if we wouldn't eat human flesh, we would by necessity... I don't understand what the thought is there. If we wouldn't eat dead humans, we would by necessity be required to eat lions? Were you the person... I have to scroll up. Were you the person that talked about lions? They would eat you if put in the same position. Yeah, I forgot if you're the same person who mentioned lions, but... Or here, I'll just look it up. Lion... There's 3 mentions of it. Oh no. Oh no, never mind. I'm gonna get to the other chat now because everyone's been patiently waiting in the other chat for replies. Owingville, I'm the one saying hunting is natural and I'm a country boy dickhead. Did we actually debate? I can't remember if we did though. Or did you, like, over voice, or did we not? Thanks for coming back. I know I'm extremely fucking charming and you just can't stop, you know, watching my face and hearing my voice. I really appreciate the engagement. Thank you so much. Remember now, dumbass? So buttered. Do they know it's wrong though? Does a being require to know what they're doing is wrong in order for you as an agent to believe that what the non-agent is doing is wrong? That's like saying, hey, the hurricane doesn't know what it's doing is wrong, so should I really retreat? It's just so dumb. Do predators know what's wrong though? Never stated that they do. Exactly, it's not. Yeah. Oh, so you're saying kill them because they're killing other animals for food. Right. I mean, I would, if there's no other solution that's practical in order to stop a mass murderer other than to kill the mass murderer, then regardless of if they are a non-moral agent, as sad as it is to remove their life, if, again, there's no other option, yes, absolutely. Would you not kill a mentally handicapped person who's on a fucking killing spree? Jesus. We're not better or worse than the animals that eat other animals. You're absolutely worse if you are an agent and you attempt to justify the world's largest Holocaust, even though you're able to control your actions as opposed to the fucking lions, cougars, lions, tigers, bears, oh my. Trying to be different is pointless. Trying to be different than... Wait. Trying to be different than non-moral agents is pointless? Got it. So when a man rapes a woman, when somebody rapes your mom or your wife or your sister or somebody you care about, just remember them trying to be pointless from an animal who would rape another animal, or an animal who would eat you, or an animal who would rape you is pointless. Yeah, you see how dumb it is to try to get your morals from non-agents? Like, that's just so insane. We could evolve them. Really? Well, did I say it's feasible in 2025, dumbass? Or did I say, hopefully we would reach that point? Yeah. You know, maybe it would be the case that by the time humanity wakes up to animal rights, we have that technology available. Maybe it's not. There's also a concept of genetic breeding, with regards to cats and dogs. It's wrong that cats and dogs get raped in order for them to continue, you know, being companion animals for humans. But you know what's desirable? Still having them around. So ideally we would lab grow cats and dogs in order to, you know, get around the consent issue and, you know, be better off. You guys are gonna have a fucking field day with that one. Relating to your Holocaust point here, Adam, did you, what? That's your first comment, Adam. I don't know what you're saying relating to your Holocaust point here. Adam, if you would like to join the Discord instead of cucking in the corner and chat, you're more than welcome to. I don't know what original point. I'm going to scroll through. I don't see Adam. No, you weren't here and above. Yeah, you just told somebody else that you agreed with them, but you didn't say what you were saying in relation to my Holocaust point. I don't know what you're saying. I don't see anything on Kick. I'm not sure. Never mind. I'm wasting my time here. Yeah, you weren't getting attention on your extremely dumb interjections. Channel name, no, we are omnivores. Well, why would I have to disagree with you on the biological state of what we are in order to disagree with you on whether or not we ought kill animals for food? Is that a point meant to say that we would not be able to thrive on a plant-based diet? Because that's a positive claim you're going to have to defend, right? You're going to have to name the enzyme that's, you know, present within, that's lacking with, or that's present within omnivory or dead animals, which if present within a plant-based diet would cause it to be sufficient. Right? Is there some sort of enzyme? Is there some sort of nutrient? Is there something that you could actually name that vegans cannot get on a plant-based diet? Or are you just going to assert that in a very cuckish way that it's unhealthy or it's unfeasible despite having no evidence? Because that's just uninteresting. But yeah, I mean, being biologically omnivorous doesn't matter. As long as we're able to live healthily on a plant-based diet, you don't even have a basis. Although I do think it would be wrong that humans would kill other humans if the only option was if the only option to live healthfully was to kill other humans. So take it a step farther than the average, brain dead vegan. Dead animals taste better than key. Key? What the fuck is key? A keyblade? Bitch ass what? Okay.
Maybe it's like Key, the energy, like Dragon Ball.
No, Lord only knows. Okay, back to the other chat now. We will just scale Steven Strawmans. We will just scale up magically and 8 billion people would be fed. Not even a realistic argument. Scale up what? You've not even established the positive claim that humanity would not have enough food to survive unless we killed animals for food. What the fuck are you talking about? All I did was entertain the conditional that if it weren't the case that we had enough manure. I shouldn't have even entertained that because that invites the idea that I, even by some sort of illusion, have the burden of proof when I don't, right? You have the burden of proof, quite obviously, that there is not enough, there would not be enough food to feed people if it were the case that the world were to go vegan. That's your burden. You are required to prove that. Eating humans. I lost where we were, and if you want to hop into Discord and debate, we're more than welcome to do that. So now personal disgust is the basis of morality. I don't know what you mean by the basis of morality. It's just, that sounds like jargon. If you mean to say that relative to my view and relative to what I think, logically consistent and non-absurd people would be that they respect the virtues of trade equalized beings as they do animals as well, then yeah, I think that's true. I think if a person wouldn't eat the corpse of a dead human, I think they not eat the dead corpse of a cat or dog on the side of the road. Call me crazy, right? Then my trait is that eating humans personally disgusts me and eating cows doesn't. Debate over. Wait, but there's so many problems there. First of all, I didn't say personal disgust was the only factor. I said that would hold true at least if a being once had the sentience, once had non-trivial sentience, or looked sufficiently like a being that possessed sentience before. That's one. The other thing is, saying that it's the basis of morality is silly because your position would be different than my position regardless, even though I was referring to, different contexts, right? And then when you say your trait is eating humans personally disgust you, right? So if that's going to just reduce down to what's meant by eating humans. So if that means by means of human DNA, then if we had a being whose DNA was altered and they had but they were subjectively similar to humans, and that, then if that didn't disgust you, would it be okay to eat them? If your mom's consciousness was transferred inside of a being that was that was that of a cow, the body of a cow, would you not be disgusted and therefore it's okay to eat them? And finally, the one that you never reconciled because you're scared is if the concept of human consciousness was reducible to having the intelligence level of that of a cow, then if your mom was born as severely mentally handicapped as that of a cow, and then when she was born and then she had her consciousness immediately transferred over to the body of a cow, would it be okay to kill? Would you be disgusted by killing and eating that being? Yes or no? You need to eat dead animals. You are required to do so for what? For nutrients? For what? If we wouldn't eat dead human meat, we would by necessity be required to eat dead animals, thus making it justified. What? I don't even understand what you're trying to say there. If we wouldn't eat dead humans, we would by necessity be required to eat dead animals. What? If we wouldn't eat human meat, we would by necessity... I have no fucking clue what you're saying. I think my comment got deleted. Fair. Burnaby, I didn't delete your comment. I didn't see that you said anything that was problematic. In fact, I see other people who are more problematic than you. It wasn't directly related to the argument, but I thought it highlighted the two-facedness of saying we should kill lions yet owning a cat. I don't see anything about that. I last responded to the last thing you said, which was animals don't kill and eat other animals for fun, though, for survival. I thought I highlighted the two-facedness of saying we should kill the lions yet owning a cat. Why do you think that having a cat as a companion is problematic? As long as my cat is not killing other animals, what do you think the problem is? Wait, are you uninterestingly assuming that my cats are animal murderers? That they are not fed a plant-based diet? You guys are just full of assumptions. This is your first rodeo with philosophy, and I can tell. You've never understood the concept of skepticism until you've entered this live stream before. It's painful. Jesus. Back to the other chat. We would deplete land fast in a vegan diet. Provide evidence for that. Also, if we would deplete land fast in a non-human diet, and the only other alternative to not kill humans was to deplete land, would you say that that's morally acceptable to continue to kill those humans? We should just clone the tasty parts and keep animals as pets. I assume when you say keep animals as pets, you mean cows, chickens, and pigs, or do you mean cats and dogs? Because that's like really virtuistically disgusting. Like, imagine you would eat the flesh of your cat, but just not like the sentient. You wouldn't kill your cat and remove his sentience. Yeah, I mean, virtuistically, I find that to be disgusting. I wouldn't do that in the human context. I don't know why the fuck I'd do that in the animal context. Dead cow, Roxy said. Drool face. I am sure that there is a huge non-sentient muscle in some laboratory somewhere being fed by tubes. Lewis, I have no fucking clue what you're saying. But if what you're trying to say, let me try to understand. Non-sentient muscle being fed by oh, are you just trying to make a point that like you're being sarcastic or doubtful to the idea that in the future we'll have like lab grown cats and dogs or something like that? I don't know. Maybe you're trying to be serious and say something like in 2020 as you know, we are in a modern day and age, like 2025, that we, you know, probably do have something like that going on in the world. I wouldn't be surprised if we have at least experimented, you know, a few times with something similar. Do you hold animals and humans complete at the same level in terms of value? No, I actually have a video, Bennett, titled Stop This Conflation, Moral Sufficiency versus Equality. In short, I'll just say it as I like to remind people. You know, $5 is point by analogy. $5 is greater than $2, but both are enough to buy a can of Coke. The point is just that anybody who believes in animal rights isn't committed to the position that animal rights have to be equal to humans, any more than severely mentally handicapped people have to have equal rights to your average human, any more than you don't have to ascribe equal moral value from a newborn versus Einstein, but both you would presumably ascribe the right to life and autonomy, right? Case in point, right? I mean, you know, Name the Trait is not attempting to make a case that animals and humans are equal to one another. It's just trying to make a case that they deserve minimal, sufficient moral value, such for the basic rights such as life and autonomy, such that it's, you know, you are logically consistent. You stop killing and eating animals for food. I love me some dead cows. Would you love you some dead humans? Turtle? Back to the other chat. You ran from sentience. What do you mean by ran from sentience? Your initial example literally committed a category error. I corrected you on it. When you said, when you said, what if, I think you jumped to a human body after that. I answered that would be virtuistically disgusting and I would avoid it. Not to the same degree as I would obviously say somebody murdering, but it would be morally at least disgusting enough virtuistically. So I didn't run from that. I continued to ascertain your questions, but you know, you can keep acting like I ran. Says the person who never jumped in fucking Discord to have a voice debate. So has had sentience. That's not changing the traits, right? You literally gave different context. I gave you the context that exists with regards to why, on average, I don't have a problem with consuming plants. That explained it in a concise format. Then I spoke to you about the reasoning behind why I value some subset of beings who either once had sentience or who looked like sentient creatures or technically possessed human flesh. And I added nuance to what you were once unaware of. That's not changing. That's just giving the fuller picture. Unlike somebody who tries to name a trait or set of traits that are true of an animal, which if true of a human would cause them to eat the trait equalized human as they would the animal. I actually gave further clarifications for a few different sets of beings. If you give different context, you're going to get different answers. But the context that's being asked to name the trait is actually held equal, which is why somebody who changes their position will be looked at as somebody who's changing their position. Bennett, yeah, I suppose I believe humans are intrinsically superior due to our biology and soul. We treat animals with respect, but not the same as a result. Right, but you don't have to treat animals and humans, again, the same in order to give them basic rights, right? You can grant, if you can understand the concept that we would grant morally sufficient value to a newborn or to a severely mentally handicapped human, such that we wouldn't kill or rape them, or violate their autonomy or anything else like that, then you should understand the concept that sufficiency doesn't equal equality. And then when you say humans are intrinsically superior, as if that reconciles the reductio that I just gave you, right? So what would you say you would do to a being that subjectively looks like a human, but has the DNA of a cow, chicken, or a pig, for example? Would they then lack intrinsic superiority if all that was defined by a human was the DNA that's present? Turtle, I mean, I don't, but some people like humans. Right, but you wouldn't want to represent somebody else's view, Turtle. You want to represent your own view. But the newborn animals are humans. What? Newborn and animals? I think you misspoke. The newborns and mental handicap. Right. That's why I gave the correct. I know you're responding at a different point in time. That's why I went through the reductio to say, I was just responding to the idea that we treat animals with respect, but not the same as a result, because you still made a point about equality when this should only ever be a matter of sufficiency. So I should be always seeing something about sufficient moral value or minimum sufficiency or whatever way you want to word that. So I'm just recorrecting that part of the framing. But with regards to the appreciation of you valuing humans intrinsically as being superior, that's going to suffer the issue on your view of if all that's meant by human is possessing human DNA, then any alterations that are made to human DNA such that they're sufficiently not human anymore, you would have to say that even if a being had sufficient, even if they had what you would consider to be human consciousness, let's just say that's like the equivalent average intelligence as a human, and look subjectively similar to a human, but they didn't have the technical DNA. Let's say they had like cow appendages and like other internal cow parts or whatever the fuck. They couldn't reproduce with humans, right? Would that make it would the intrinsic superiority be lost, and you would say it's okay to kill and eat those beings for food? How do you feel about one animal eating another? I don't know if you weren't around for the other parts. Maybe you were new. But predators are doing a immoral action two agents, right? The outcome is wrong. They are not immoral actors, right? But yeah, I mean, it's looked at as the outcome as morally reprehensible, so we should stop it as we would a mentally handicapped person that's just like going around with a machine gun, ba 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 ba, you know? Not possessing human DNA, but actually being a human in the full. Can you define what's meant by being a human in the full sense? Is that gonna entail something like, I presume, looking like a human and possessing human DNA? GamerCat says, I believe I'm a fish. Congratulations, you have achieved the sentience level of Bree, which is a severely mentally handicapped human. That is, let's look up Bree so we can find out what GamerCat is transferred into. All right, this is GamerCat,
diaper changing.
everybody.
Of diapers changed to date
Wow, stimulation program. Okay.
is when she was first born, I just was manic to find a way to keep her alive. Now at this point, the goal is to have Bree healthy and happy for as long as she decides she's going to be here. Bree.
So this is what GamerCat thinks that they have the equivalent sentience and intelligence level of. I don't think you'd be able to type if that were the case, but hopefully that helps you to realize that you're not a fish. Yeah, glad to help. Here we go. Bennett, 100% human DNA and the gift of life? I am trying not to draw from my new Christian beliefs here, so I appreciate the recognition of like an attempt to see your errors in your line of reasoning. I do. It can legitimately speaking, it can really be hard to pull away from that. So thank you. Now I'm going to help you to realize what the problems are with that. If you say 100% human DNA, and you're not entailing the subjective similarity of the appearance of the being in question, then if I were to say that a being who 100% had distinctive DNA from a human, and it was technically 100% cow, but looked human, and they didn't have the gift of life, which I'm going to presume means something that's given from God, but of course I'm going to ask for clarity before I presume that. I'm just going to deliver it as a conditional rather than saying that this is your view or the view that you espoused. Under that particular view that I just mentioned, that view, you would have to be okay with saying it's morally acceptable to kill and eat those beings for food. And I doubt you would say that, right? The gift of life, though, I am gonna ask for clarity on. When you say gift of life, do you mean something like that to which God has ascribed, like the value towards? Like is this something about like what God has given? Is that, because I know you mentioned Christian belief, so I'm gonna presume that's what you mean. Actually, Bennett, if you have Discord, I'd really appreciate if you hopped on. It'd be, pretty sure it'd be a really good conversation between us. I think you seem like the best faith person in either chat going on right now. So I would be very happy to have the conversation. Mike says WTF. Yeah, I agree. Like, what the fuck? How can anybody justify trying to kill and eat a trait equal as human? Fonderbog Destroyer. How about not judging people for what they want to eat, including humans, Fonderbog? Were you going to say that too? If not, what trait is true of an animal, which if true of a human, would cause you to say that you wouldn't judge the person for eating the trait equalized being as you don't the animal? It's someone else's lifestyle. I mean, so was Hannibal Lecter's, right? So was Hitler's. It was just his lifestyle. Obviously, if it infringes on some other being's rights, like their right to life and autonomy, it's not very interesting to just state that somebody else prefers something that violates another being's sets of rights. And you shouldn't judge based off that. Okay, so by that logic, you shouldn't have an opinion that it's wrong to kill and eat humans for food, because that's just a judgment, right? And if you say that there's a morally relevant symmetry breaker between that and judging somebody for killing and eating animals, what's the morally relevant symmetry breaker? Then that's a skin a walker? I'm not familiar with that phrase, Bennett. What's a skin a walker? And I'm running away as it's not human but looks like one? Wait. I am running away as it's not a human but looks like one. Right, if you define human as possessing 100% DNA. I'm positing that there is a being that has 100% non-human DNA. Say, for example, it's that of a cow. They've got cow appendages, they can't reproduce with humans, but they have the appearance of a human. Gift of life equals and moral worth from God done at birth. Right, so presumably if there was an entire world of beings that were subjectively similar to humans but didn't have human DNA or weren't mentioned in the Bible as God having given them moral worth, would those beings be acceptable to kill and eat for food? What does the vegan have against dead pig? What does the what does the human rights believer have against eating human bacon? See how easy that was? Gamer Cat, what's your fave pet? Depends on what's meant by favorite. I don't really preside favoritism in terms of like how much I grant like moral consideration or like preference or something like that over one versus the other. Practically speaking, it's very easy to rescue cats. So I have rescued numerous cats throughout my life, and some people have accused me of that being my favorite animal. But if it were just as easy to do the same for dogs, I think I would have equally split the challenge on trying to rescue dogs and cats. But yeah. What is the argument here? Well, it's a question. It's a consistency test, right? So, as you could probably read, hopefully you can, the title is Debate Me Live, Episode 4, Can Anyone Justify Eating Animals? And the question that I posit to people who hop onto the live stream, hopefully voice, and they don't cuck into chat for a million years, is what trait is true of an animal, which if true of a human, would cause you to kill the human as you would the animal, right? So there's something called the trait equalization process, and if somebody attempts to name a trait or set of traits that morally differentiate humans and animals such that it's okay to kill the one, not the other, they're going to have to say at what point in the process of a human becoming an animal that moral value is lost. So just going to ask where that is on your moral view. Sure, I can jump a Discord for 30 minutes or so if you wish. Absolutely. Please do, Bennett. I've got the link in the description. Let me know if that works for you. It seemed to have worked for somebody else earlier, so everything should be good. But if it doesn't work for whatever reason, just let me know the word and I'll send a new link and everything. Can they observe right? Tommy, that sounds like an incomplete sentence. If you could send back a full sentence, I'd really appreciate it. Oh, looks like Bennett joined. Cats chill. That's why I have had more cats. I see that. Okay, Bennett, I've got you in the room now. Go ahead and try talking. Let's see if it works.
Oh shit! Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Thanks so much for joining.
That's sweet. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know where you want me to start really, because obviously you're kind of going back and forth over text, so it's.
Oh no! Forget the text. Like it's just you and me now. I think we were last talking about the traits of the two. There were two that you were mentioning, right? It was the gift of life, and it was also human DNA, 100% to human DNA.
Yeah, I mean, bear with me, by the way, it is 4 o'clock where I am, so just bear with me, I'm a bit slow here. But essentially, what I was getting at is that everything you're saying in terms of like, whenever someone brings up like what traits does a human have that an animal doesn't, I suppose the main trait is the fact that we are a human and it's 100% human DNA. And I suppose in your counter to that, when you say, oh, if you have this person that looks like a human but has no human DNA, although they might look the same, can you still kill them? Well, it's not a human. It isn't a human. So yes, it would be the answer.
So a couple things. So just a correction to the first part there, because
Sure,
I don't
yeah.
mean to sound pedantic because I'm pretty sure I know what you mean, but I just want full clarity, especially for the audience. You said that differentiates the two, but it's morally differentiates the two, just to be ultra clear, because there are all sorts
Yeah.
of traits I could admit differentiate the two. But then to what you said, if you're just critiquing the framing where I said, would it be okay to kill that human? I don't know if I actually misspoke about that. I'm a little tired myself, but I did mean to just say the being. So yeah. And then finally, if your answer is yes, it's okay to kill that being, the being in question who doesn't possess or possesses 100% non-human DNA, say it's cow DNA, but they look
Yeah.
like a human. And everything else is held equal, so they even have human consciousness. Everything else is held true about them. And I don't know if at this point the gift of life is still relevant, but if presumably not, because you think that only someone who's ascribed human DNA would be someone who was given the gift of life, correct?
Yeah, because I'm trying to come this from a non-Christian angle. I'm a very new Christian, like I've only just sort of
Okay.
come into it, if you will. So I'm trying to focus on the DNA aspect, and I think that the problem I have with your phrasing though is if you say someone's got 100% non-human DNA, so say it's a cow 100%, but it looks like a human completely,
Yeah.
but then it wouldn't have the same sentence that we have, right? Because it's not a human. Just on a basic level.
Not necessarily,
Wouldn't have our
right?
brain.
So you might imagine it that way, but for the sake of the hypothetical, when somebody names different traits, right? Like they're whenever they engage with name the trait, they're always coming at it in a sense where they're appreciating what the value of the traits are. So say for example, somebody says that like they value the intelligence level of a human. I'm going to plug that in, right? And name that as or if they name that as a trait, I'm going to plug it in when I give the reductio. So when you say, for example, the human DNA you believe entails some concept of them having, I think you said lower sentience or lower intelligence, right? Like they would have that of a cow.
Yeah.
Right. That's how you interpret it. And I'm not criticizing you or anything like that to some like insane degree. I can see
No problem.
reasonably why you would imagine that. But for the sake of the concept of behind name the trait, you understand it's possible to imagine a being who has, for example, like their consciousness, average human level consciousness transferred inside that of a cow. Or maybe they still have their consciousness switched over, but they have like plastic surgery done. And they were born with like cow DNA, and so they look like a human, but they're not actually technically in possession of human DNA, right?
Right. So you're saying this thing has got consciousness of a human, but has no human DNA. Do you not see how
Right.
that almost comes across as that can't happen? And that
Well,
like
when you-
even
when you
as a
say-
hypothetical, it's not really like it doesn't follow through.
No. So when you say can't, I understand if what you mean is in the real world or something like that.
Yeah.
There's not a process you could appeal to. That's all fine, right? Just like how I don't have a machine that can currently transfer the consciousness from your mom to a cow, but I can still deliver the hypothetical. Now where I do have problem and I have to push back is when you say it doesn't make sense even for a hypothetical, because as long as you can imagine a being that looks like a human and has the mind of a human, but they have the DNA, which means like internal cellular components, so like cow appendages, they have like they can't reproduce with humans, so they're private, so on and so forth, like all the
Yeah.
parts that make up their DNA. I take DNA to mean it's like all biological, not that like the mind in question of
I'm with
the
you.
agent in question. Yeah.
Okay, right. But then I suppose my thing with like your side of the debate in terms of like veganism, I suppose, is that you're taking like this really ridiculous extreme and saying like, so if you're going to establish a trait that is like you have to choose one trait that makes one human. I just don't think that's how humanity works. Like, we're such complex creatures that have like multiple facets, and like unless you are a human, you're not a human. It's not kind of like a maybe situation.
There's a lot being said. Go
on. Sorry, go on. Sorry, go on. Sorry. No, do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to lose. So when you said and I don't think you meant this terribly, but like when you said it's ridiculous, I'm just
I don't mean like I'm not judging you, by the way. I'm not saying
Sure. I don't think you actually realize that and is this your first time tuning in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never done anything like this before, man.
No. I'm not Destiny or some shit like that. I'm not popular. No. But like, I was just wondering, because I actually have spoken about this a few times. So I was just curious where like you might be coming from. So I could flip this back around and kindly remind you that the thing that's ridiculous is having the reasoning, which is all that a thought experiment attempts to convey behind something that justifies something that you underlyingly don't actually believe in, yet avoid the logical consequences of, because you merely don't answer a hypothetical or the thought experiment in question. Yeah. So for example, like say for example, we were in the 1850s. And there was a white slave owner who was, you know, a black activist, like the me back then. It was like, bro, like imagine you're saying being black matters. What if your wife, your mom, your friend's consciousness was put inside the mind, the body of a black person? He was like, I mean, you're saying this and it's ridiculous, like, and it's never gonna happen, and so on and so forth. And you're like, but you're not, but you understand what the consequences are, right, man? And he's like, no. Now, hopefully that intuition pump coming back to this helps serve what I'm about to conclude with, which is if you appreciate that, you know, there's problems with that view of the real world, even in that scenario, hopefully you see that regardless of how crazy or silly or complex the reductio or the logical consequences I'm giving might seem, that the real world complications, if you want to measure what that looks like, you just need to look no further than Slaughterhouse footage or Dominion, because you'll see firsthand the types of beings that you're justifying killing and eating for food are the beings that you had difficulty hypothesizing what they would look like in the real world or how they would come into fruition.
Right. But I suppose the difference with the sort of the parallel you just made is that obviously with the slaves in the 1850s, they were still humans, right? Like they still had 100% human DNA, and like that's quite a clear.
No, and I get that. Sorry, just to be crystal clear, the part that's being analogized is not whether or not they were human. The part that's being analogized is on the craziness of the hypothetical to the other party, and that's going to be something.
Okay,
like
I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry,
consciousness transferring. No, it's okay. Consciousness transferring. You know, maybe it's like the plastic surgery thing. Like he's like, how are we even going to do that? It's the 1850s. And you're like, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe doctors have the ability, like, you know, Michael Jackson, like they'll fucking bleach your skin, or like the opposite, they'll blacken your skin, you know, like that sort of thing. And so if he struggled to appreciate the underlying moral issue with what was being posed to him merely because of the impracticality behind the hypothetical, it would be a real shame, because obviously we can see that all the beings that he ought have respected would be the very slaves that he owns.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm following you. So going back to what you want to put across in terms of the hypothetical, put that one more time across to me, and I'll try and approach it purely at face value rather than.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah. So I imagine, for example, that maybe I'll even give an intuition pump to you with regards to, were you around for Brie?
Brie?
Yeah. So are you watching the live stream now?
I mean, I've got it muted, but go for it.
Okay.
Brie,
yeah.
we keep her
So this is a severely mentally handicapped being. Brie obviously looks like a human, right? I'm going to make this very simple for the intuition pump just to help deliver the point. They have the intelligence level and sentience of a fish, right? So they're even less than that of a cow. Now, imagine if I told you the truth behind this person was that they were, even though they look human, they had cow DNA. So just biologically, they had like cow appendages and all those other functions. If you found out that were the case, would you infinitely find it acceptable that people would kill and eat these beings for cheeseburgers?
If it has 100% cow DNA, yes.
No,
it's not. I mean, maybe that sounds. You're right. So, but like, hold on. So it's presenting as a human. And that's one thing. It has 100% DNA of an animal, but has a sentience of a fish. But the sentience you're trying to correlate to this person, So they've got some aspects of humanity, but not others. And for me, a human is a unique creature in the world that cannot be. It's not like anything else. In the same way, a cow is a cow and a sheep is a sheep. You can't just go, okay, is sentience your one thing you're going to die on the hill of if that's what gives moral worth to something? I don't think that's right. I think
You don't have to pick a trait. Name. Wait. You don't have to. So.
But you're trying to use sentience, right? Yeah.
No. Sure, but I want you to reappreciate what began here, and maybe you didn't hear earlier as well. But it's name a trait or set of traits, which is why when I asked you earlier if it was like the gift of life plus, for example, their human DNA, you could name a trait stack. And it's not going to reconcile, I think, the absurdity of the view. Although you did, unfortunately, just leave it at that the traits that you think are true that make up the value of the worth of a human, at least were human DNA. But if you want to tack on any other traits that you think more, accurately summarize your view, you're free to do that as well.
Well, I think first and foremost is the DNA, because you've got to be a human to be a human. Like in terms of your makeup, like your legs, and you've got 2 arms and 10 fingers and 10 toes, whatever. Obviously, there's abnormalities, but you still got to understand human DNA. I suppose also on top of that is the soul, is the gift of life, and I mean that in a slightly religious sense, but also just even on like a atheist level, you can kind of understand that a human and a dog have 2 different levels of understanding of the world, right? Like you can see that just on a basic level. So I think, between those 2 things, the DNA and the gift of life or the soul, I think those 2 things kind of make up the human.
I want to challenge the gift of life, though, by itself. Because if we find out that you and I, right, in evaluating your moral view, that when you're reflecting on the logical consequences of it, you actually don't think that the gift of life is a morally relevant trait, then it's not the case that's going to be a part of the trait stack. So, for example, the reductio that I gave earlier was if you were to see an entire identical world to humanity, and they looked like humans. They had similar intelligence levels of humans, but they had altered DNA. Would God have not given these beings the gift of life, or would He?
So it's run that by me one more time. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So. I'm trying to understand what's meant by the gift of life, and I understand you said earlier it's what God gave to humans specifically. So I'm imagining like a morally or a clone of our universe, and I'm imagining that like if this other universe had everyone that was the true of that world, but it was the case that all these beings just didn't have human DNA, and thus God did not ascribe them the gift of life because they technically didn't have human DNA. If that's the qualifying trait that gave them the gift of life, would it be the case that those beings don't deserve the right to life?
Once again, it's such an extreme, but like I mean. Okay, so everything has moral worth to some degree, right? Like everything, like the fishes, the cows, the sheep, the dogs, everything has a moral worth, but everything's placed on sort of a hierarchy. And I suppose in that situation, you kind of got to slot them in somewhere, right?
Because like I actually have a video titled "Stop This Conflation: Moral Sufficiency versus Equality," and it goes over this concept. Like I've actually said numerous times throughout the live stream.
The £5, £3, yeah.
$5, right? Exactly, yeah. And so you could place animals on a hierarchy just as much as you would a newborn versus Einstein, but hopefully you describe them at least morally sufficient value. Now, if you're not, again, I just want to see if the value of the gift of life is going to be still appreciated here. And so what I'm concerned with is that it's not actually a morally relevant distinction at all. So I'm sorry, I don't understand your answer or response per se. Were you saying that if it were the case that this universe didn't have human DNA, would God have ascribed them the gift of life, or because they didn't have DNA, He wouldn't have ascribed them the gift of life?
I mean, if you're going to ask about God, obviously you can understand that as a Christian. I can step back and go, actually, I don't understand God. I'm so far from God, and I can't tell you what He would or would not do, because He is the ultimate arbiter of what will and won't happen. You know?
Sure, but you must have, but you have enough belief to understand that He did talk about the gift of life, right?
Yeah, he said we had dominion over the earth, and he very much the Bible is very much written in the context of this earth, and what
presumably
we can
you follow His teachings.
To the best I can. We're all sinners.
Right. So if God didn't make a statement about these creatures at all, and you didn't know what to do with them, and people were to say, hey, we don't know what the heck God said either, we're going to go ahead and eat them, would you give them a thumbs up or thumbs down?
It's once again, it's such an extreme. I suppose, no, but like genuinely though, because it's like
I'm not trying to be rude. It's just like,
no, go for it.
I find it to be very hard to believe, especially with how sane you sound, that you would legitimately like find it, you know, okay, and give the thumbs up that like, yeah, you'd be okay with eating them. I severely doubt it, Bennett. Like I believe in you more than that. I think you would be like they're too similar. Like they're too you know, like. It's uncomfortable to grant yes to that. You'd probably intuit that God would say, well, no, like they deserve morally sufficient value. I didn't grant the specific page in the clause where it said that's where they deserve the right to life, but like, fuck, like they're sentient, they, you know, they cry, they bleed, they have sex, like they, you know, like you probably feel, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's a very hard moral question. Like, humanity to me is the ultimate arbiter of the world. Like, we are the pinnacle. Like, I mean, we are the top of the food chain, all the rest of it. So we truly have a lot of power over what is below us, and that is everything on the food chain. So I suppose in that sense, you can make a fair argument to say, like, ultimately humanity makes mistakes. We're all sin ridden. But you know, if they're going to be eaten, they're going to be like eaten. Like I don't know. It's really, really difficult. That, but like I don't think that hypothetical puts a good case for veganism at all. Because once again, we're talking about animals here now.
Wait. The hypothetical, it depends on if it's a good case, depending on the individual's reasoning. So if nobody's reasoning depends on the quote unquote gift of life, then yeah, it's not a good hypothetical because it's not applicable to them. But it's actually a great hypothetical for exposing that the underlying reasoning ought not be abided by. So if we go back to your example of like, where we plug this in, and you said it was going to be true of any, you know, being that has 100% non-human DNA, and you claimed that it was the gift of life that was morally relevant as well. But when we look to see if the gift of life was relevant by itself, such that it would add value for this hypothetical, for example, because I know that you were falling back onto that as well to sort of take the throttle or power away from the reductio, we saw that didn't stand on its own, because you said yourself, if I heard you correctly, that you know, you had to admit that you would not give anybody the green light to go ahead and holocaust those beings for food. That you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also be careful conflating the word Holocaust to something that maybe it wouldn't be considered that, but like. Yeah, but I personally struggle to give the green light
for the subjectively similar humans.
Yeah, but they're subjectively similar. They're not. I mean, I'm not just you or no. I could say if they're human or not based on your own hypothetical.
Wait. What do you mean we can't say they're human or not? If I stipulate that they're not human, then yeah, I could say they're not human.
Okay, so you said they're not human.
It's like later, if you intend to go to the grocery store and get orange juice. I can't tell you you can't say it's not or not, or it is or isn't orange juice, because you're stipulating that like you hypothesize you would buy orange juice. So,
but I've no by the time looking at the orange, like no. I really
you could hypothesize. Wait. But you could hypothesize that your hypothetical of what you would be picking out at the store ideally would be orange juice. So as much as you could do that, I could stipulate that I know that they're not in possession of human DNA.
If they're not in possession of human DNA, then they're not humans, and they're not like they don't have any dominion. Because they're not human. Like I know it sounds really bad, and I'm struggling to say that myself, to be honest. But like,
maybe it's the case that you don't believe it, buddy. Because Bennett, like, right, like it feels like it. But
I still don't see how that conflates to veganism. Like in that exact hypothetical, you put me in a hard spot. I think that's difficult. I can't give you yes or no. And you make me think open mind a little bit. But in terms of veganism, I think it's much more cut and dry, right? Like I just think it is.
Well, I want to make a side note about good news for you there, because you said I've made you think a little bit. People often appeal to like this sort of like gentle persuasion that we need empathy, comedy, arts. Like it's in psychology, it's called peripheral vision, or peripheral persuasion, and emotional accessibility is very, very important here. That's why when I see you experiencing like discomfort, I actually am happy, because you are more likely to consider animal rights the more uncomfortable you feel. Psychologically, we humans respond better to not only negative stimuli, but it actually causes more total thoughts. So that's actually a good thing. And then in terms of going back to the philosophical point, just to wrap up my counter here, you say that you feel bad about it, but like if you do, I implore you to think that you don't actually commit to the position that it would be okay to kill these beings for food, right? Like it's it's
like
and it's okay
in your
to leave
situation. No, I no, but it's not though, because in your situation, I agree, it's a difficult choice. But I think in reality, right now, I have no qualms about going down and getting a chicken burger. Like I really don't. Like, and I think that from the fact that
no, and I agree that you descriptively have a disconnect between the appreciation of the reasoning that you just deployed with regards to what you think serves as a morally relevant symmetry breaker, and behind what currently allows you to consume a dead chicken burger. And the truth is, Bennett, is that it's really not the trait that you just mentioned, because that reasoning, as you said, you actually reject. And when you look at psychology within humans, it's merely because we have two things: a strong visceral response for killing humans that's present even when we are indoctrinated, like even tribes people have, even when they're indoctrinated, they still have insane responses towards, it feeling uncomfortable killing other people. There was like a guy that performed an interview with a tribes person, and even he was giving like consideration to the interviewer, even though all he does is kill and eat humans all day. But when it comes to animals, we lack a lot of that visceral response. And then when you combine that with the indoctrination of like, you don't have to say your age, but I'm going to presume you're around like, your 20s or something.
I could guess you. I'm 22.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm 27. So, you've lived presumably 22 years of your life seeing billboards, hearing advertisements, talking to people, eating your grandma's food, going to friends' houses, going to school, where like the normalization of an appreciation towards non-animal rights and violating them and not being critically thought out on the logical consequences of it have not hit you really until this moment. And so
I'm sorry, but like I have to push back on this again. You've gave me this hypothetical that I've struggled to answer, and I appreciate that, and I say I will take that away with me for sure. But I still don't see how you're then translating that hypothetical to a chicken getting killed. I really I'm struggling to see the bridge between those two.
The beauty of Name the Trait. The beauty of Name the Trait is that it is a consistency test that's based in whatever trait or set of traits you mention. Okay, so you really have to ask yourself what the connection is, because I certainly, as somebody who appreciates animal rights, don't name any trait that's true of an animal, which if true of a human would cause me to kill the trait equalized human as I do the animal. Being that you did name or attempt to name two, and we found out that the gift of life was actually irrelevant. And then
it's not irrelevant. It's not irrelevant because even in your hypothetical, you didn't use the gift. You said they didn't have the gift of life, and that gift of life is almost essential. But then I suppose you're right, because I then couldn't answer a straight yes to if we should kill them or not. But,
Right. No, but I want to fixate on the other part, which is the much more intuitive portion, which I feel that there's a bit of resistance towards, which is, whether or not these beings who possess 100% non-human DNA would legitimately be okay to killing for food. Like if I pointed over here again to Bree and I said, hey, bro, like you just found out that you got the green light to turn her into a chicken burger because she has 100% chicken DNA. She has, I mean, I don't think that's how it relates, because if the actual trait that you thought morally differentiated the two beings was the non-human DNA, then it would have to follow that this sort of being would be okay to, kill and eat for food.
And but I still stand by the fact that would be okay because it's not a human. And I don't like that's I don't
right. And I know you could say that, and I know you could say that, but Bennett, like I'm a little tired, so I'm not, I'm not giving more sort of like rhetorical ability for you to appreciate the sort of like absurdity within that view. But like I all I can tell you is I severely doubt. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You can hit me with it, honestly. Like, I mean, you're saying it looks like exactly like that person right now on the screen, but it's 100% not a human. Then that's not a human, and that that
it meets your criteria. It meets your criteria. I get that. And you could plug in the responses to, technically speaking, say that your answer would be that it would have to be okay, and it would have to logically follow. But realize that it having to logically follow is distinct from if you would realistically do it. And I think you're saying yes because it's very difficult to concede the realization that that would be morally wrong by your own standards. But I don't believe that you would, pay somebody to pick up the knife on your behalf and to, kill and eat them for a burger. I don't think you would be like...
I mean, I'd also struggle right now in person to go and kill I couldn't kill the chicken myself. I'd struggle to do that because everyone's got empathy. I'm not a farmer. I've not been raised with that.
But don't you think that's kind of
indicative in
indicative?
itself.
Right, but don't you think that's kind of indicative that your true preference is such that you cannot name a trait or set of traits that morally differentiates the two beings? That maybe their sentience or their will to live is actually sufficient enough by itself?
I did give you the trait. It was a DNA, and I've said that I still stand by that.
You've given the trait, but going back to you saying that it's difficult for you to even do that with regards to a chicken, sounds like it's an indication that maybe you irreducibly value the concept of them possessing a minimum level of sentience, and that's actually what you're appreciating there, rather than it being explanatory that they're just not technically human. Because I think I see what you're driving with it, but so for example, the chicken. If I'm going to go and kill a chicken now, I understand it's got sentience, but that does not have a bearing on whether my guilt of killing it. I suppose it's more the fact that the uncomfortability of harming anyone or anything for any reason is not nice. Everyone's had a few scuffles in their life, and if you hit someone, you feel pretty bad afterwards. It's the same line of thought of it as a human, it's not nice to do harm, but also you have to weigh up, does that harm? No, but Ben, we don't want to commit an egalitarian. We don't want to commit an egalitarian herring, which if you've probably never heard it before, but it's like somebody.
I'm not a philosopher.
No, it's okay. Somebody lifts 1 pound, somebody lifts 1,000 pounds, and it's like the example is, well, everyone's a little strong, and it's technically a subcategory of equivocation where you say, this thing is basically, minimally sufficiently comparable to this other thing, right? And so what I heard you do right there was just say, well, there are situations where I don't even like to cause harm, even when I have to, like self-defense. Like you mentioned a scuffle, I presume you mean you fought somebody.
Yeah, a fight, yeah.
Yeah. And that's distinct from if you were to, pay somebody to stab a cow in the throat for a burger just so you can enjoy the taste of it. Just like you wouldn't say that Brie over here is a being that you might not feel good of either situation, but you feel sufficiently wrong to violate a being's right to life outside of self-defense and in the situation where you're just wanting to taste their flesh.
Yeah, when you say that, it sounds absolutely awful. But yeah. I mean, there's loads of practical reasons as well why obviously veganism doesn't really follow through. But I suppose I want to press you a little bit and ask you
Okay.
you'd obviously I think I asked you and you said you don't hold a human and a cow, for example, to the same moral worth, do you? You said about the £5, £3. They both have moral worth, and you judge that to be the point where they both don't need to die, right?
Right. Yeah. Minimum sufficient value.
Yeah, so you have a sufficient value of not dying. Why have you set that bar? Because if something is there and can be eaten, and there is positives to doing such things for yourself personally, why would you not capitalize on that? Because they would do the same thing to you. I say they. So an animal would happily rip you apart.
Well, let's go one by one. So, few things. So, number one, why have I set that bar? I was born with an irreducible preference towards human rights. Okay. And so when I was about 15 years old, it's not going to be a whole life story, but just very crash course. Yeah. My mom brought up gassing baby chickens. She thought they only did it for fast food. It's actually really funny. She was not vegetarian or vegan, but she just brought it up. And I was like, that's weird. I never thought about animal rights. One day I'm cutting the flesh of a dead chicken with my fiance, and it just hit me. I was like, this used to be the flesh of a living being, like a sentient being. She was like, no, don't say that. I said, we have to watch the truth. If you don't like what we see, we go vegan overnight. And she was like, okay. So we changed overnight, never looked back. But it was when we encountered Name the Trait from Isaac Brown that we realized there's actually a logical foundation to this. And so going back to the relevance of having an irreducible preference towards human rights, I realized that there's not a trait or set of traits that morally differentiates the beings which I irreducibly value from this other set of beings that I currently at the moment did not realize that I valued. And, you know, I said, well, you know what? If I can't name a trait or a set of traits, like in order to be consistent, I have to not kill either being. So it just basically reminded me that the animals in question were just the trait equalized humans, or the beings in question that I was already uncomfortable with valuing. That's why I actually say all the time, people's core values already align with veganism, whether or not they realize it, as long as there is no trait or set of traits that they can name that morally differentiates humans and animals, such that it's okay to kill the one and not the other. But to the other thing that you said about how the animal will be okay to rip me up into pieces, that is true. As much as it is that there might be a mentally handicapped person right now that is, what you say, happy, but I hope you are not making the mistake of applying some concept of like agency or understanding of what it is that they're doing, right? Like you understand there's not like some like meta appreciation of like, oh yeah, there's a concept of wrongness here, and despite this being sentient, I'm gonna fuck him up, like he's gonna die. Like you don't think that's what the lion is doing, right?
No, I mean it's just acting on its primal instincts, and that's separated from the human. Yeah.
We're on the same page, buddy. So like when I don't know if you heard this story, but real quick, like my dog a few years ago killed my cat, and I thought he was totally good with my cat or she, and I left the house, and like I didn't know that you know this would happen, but she bit him, and he didn't make it.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really sad. He actually went to our office chairs where, you know, he knew we were, and our friend said, you know, that was he went to the last place that he remembered getting comfort. And but you know, when we came home, and we were a part of us wanted to be really upset at Tara. That was the name of our dog. But we realized like she doesn't understand what she did. Like we went up to her, and you know, we called around like places to try to take her in, like a no-kill shelter, because we have other cats and we were scared about their safety as well, and we couldn't reasonably like protect everyone. And they wanted to kill her. And we were like disgusted, because we were like, if I had a human child that, you know, was severely mentally handicapped, like Brie over here, and she killed like another one of my kids, I would be devastated. But I would never blame the poor other baby, because at the end of the day, they're just babies. Like they're non-moral agents, and one making a mistake and harming the other doesn't reflect any sort of agency, and certainly nothing to take value from it. So that's all just to say, you know, I understand that just as much as my dog bit my cat, she didn't mean to. I don't think a lion, just because they would eat me, means that I have to eat them or eat a similar being to them.
Yeah, and then I suppose it comes back to you going back in a circle. Then I suppose it's like, yeah, but I suppose that dog doesn't have the same moral worth as Brie over here. So therefore, they're back into the argument of, oh, then how do you judge moral worth? And I just think we've got a fundamental disagreement of. I mean, obviously, you know, you gave me something to think about, and I will think about it. Obviously,
I think you want there to be a fundamental disagreement.
I think we've got a fundamental disagreement. Well, there is. I think I genuinely think there is.
You think that there is?
Yeah, well, because I think 100% DNA. The gift of God, between those two things, you have a full human, and that person deserves full human rights based on not only the Bible, but also the law and normal human rights. Whereas an animal doesn't have that. Now you've tried to use hypotheticals to try and use to test my not resolve, but my thought process. And I say I can't link between your hypothetical and the real life situation. I can't put the bridge together. So that's right. On me. But I suppose I'll go away and think about that. But I couldn't give you a straight answer to that right now.
I can give you the best intuition pump ever. Have you ever seen Dominion? With Joaquin Phoenix?
Can't say I have. You know, it's bad. Sorry.
I'm sorry. You know it's what?
I can't say I have. I haven't seen it. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. So I would really recommend to watch it. Okay, and the entire time that you do, okay, I do believe that you're morally courageous enough to view it. I do believe in you with that. And I sincerely mean that. I actually talk to a lot of trolls like all day, and I swear to God, this is the most refreshing conversation I've had in the weeks that I've live streamed.
I mean, it's not going to get you millions of views, man. I'm sorry.
It doesn't have to. I value intellectual conversations with good faith interlocutors. This has met both criteria, and I really sincerely mean that. So I'm really happy that you had this with me today. And I just want to say that if you demonstrate the moral courage to face the logical consequences of what it's hard to realize, which is that it is hard to realize that we've contributed towards wrongdoings. Like, it's a lot to face. But if you face that with the intellectual honesty that you do have the capability of demonstrating, like I've seen absolute good signs of you showing today, I think you will realize that the beings in question that are in that footage are not beings that you would genuinely find yourself to want to justify killing and eating for food, just as much as if you were to watch Brie for several hours and then someone were to tap your shoulder and go, but man, don't forget, she's on the menu because of her DNA. You go, okay. All right, maybe. And it's probably just a self-deception issue with a lot of indoctrination. But I'll tell you, this is one of those situations where I can walk away saying, hey, like, that guy will probably genuinely think about, his view. And as long as you don't take this as any sort of permission to go and contribute towards the world's largest Holocaust, and you actually try to legitimately sit with your view, and
Once again,
like you will, I am
yeah,
fine.
I mean, be careful on the language, man. I say, I know you might see it that way because of the logical that you put through, but like those sort of words, especially for like something that, you know, once again, I see the sort of I don't agree.
Associated with people, right? You're probably associated with a lot of people who take offense to that virtue signal towards taking offense to that, and so by means of that and not being critically thought out on animal rights, you would not appreciate the usage of the word.
Yeah, and I see that.
And it actually is an insult to the victims of what's going on to not call it descriptively what it is. But I have to ask, like, is it something that like you think is descriptively inaccurate, or do you think it ought to be only reserved for humans?
Yeah, no, it should be reserved for humans because of the fact that I with what I've explained, I don't see the bridge between your hypothetical and the real life situation, and that we're going to solve today. But that's just how it is.
Well, this will keep you up. Did you know that victims of the World War II Holocaust actually were the first people to liken what happens to animals to the Jewish Holocaust?
Yeah, sure, but that's semantics. That's stories. Like, that's one person, two people, three. I don't know how many people.
Wait. What do you mean that's semantics? That's stories.
Well, it's not like you know, there's things that have happened to bad people, and they've then affiliated terms to other things that maybe aren't right, and like we're all humans. We all make mistakes.
Oh, so you're saying, you said we make mistakes. So you're saying it was wrong of them to have likened it.
So because I don't believe that killing animals is a Holocaust because I don't believe the definition matches.
But that's circular because you only don't believe in it because you haven't, before this conversation, thought about it. Then you were left with something to but then you were left with something to think about.
And I still believe that I'm in the right. Don't get me wrong. But I have something to think about, and that's fine.
That's believing that you're in the right when you currently have no justification is going to be ideology.
But I do think I have a justification. That's the problem. You haven't. I can't find the bridge between the hypothetical that you've received, saying about this 100% non-human DNA, human skin.
That's emotional.
I don't see
but that's an emotional disconnect between.
It's not. It's a logical disconnect. I really think it's a logical disconnect that can maybe be worked out, but I can't logically join those.
You made the logical connection because you said you would probably not actually find it to be the case, but it's something to think about, right?
I mean, it's something to think about because I need to find the logic that travels with that because I don't think that I can't see that.
So a disposition is what I would call technically an emotion, and it's when somebody has like an intuition that something is wrong, but your mind, your logic is what tells you to act on dispositions or not. So if a guy is like, let's say, really horny and he's like on a lot of steroids or something like that, like his mind will tell him not to just act on a sex drive and take advantage of a woman. So that's a disposition he might have of like, oh, me want sex, but the mind tells him to do or not do it. So when your mind tells you, hey, there's something that technically tells me that I shouldn't do this thing, but you have a problem with appreciating the disposition and what it really means for you. That sounds to me more like what I call an emotional or like an intuition pump. But all I'm trying to say here is that there's some kind of lack of appreciation.
I do think it's definitely logical because it's definitely not driven by passion. Like I say once again, like if I can't remember her name, Brie. If she was not a human, but she looked like a human, it's not a human, and that just travels for me. That logic is straight and narrow, and it has no
You say
it's not
that,
complicated. It's fine.
and then when you watch her and you see her move around like that, all slow and stuff like that, and get pet on the head, you're okay with her getting stabbed as long as you just don't see it happen.
I guess in a warped way, yes, but once again, I don't believe that's right or wrong. That's the part.
see,
Yeah, actually, so you're right.
the
So it is
warped-
emotional. You're right. No, you're right. You're right. It is emotional.
It's all
No, it is
good,
emotional.
It's all
Yeah.
good. It's all good.
No, yeah.
So no, and then I want to wrap up on the Holocaust part, because I actually agree with you on one component that you said there, and you might be very surprised. So when I've spoken to my wife about this, we would talk about it, and I would go, even if Jewish people, but I go the opposite direction. So even if Jewish people never recognized the parallel between what happened between World War II and what's currently and what has occurred that's going on with animals, it still wouldn't take away that descriptively it is slaughter or destruction on a mass scale happening to beings who possess at least more minimum sufficient value for the right to life and autonomy. To which, if people were to ask themselves if they'd be okay with it, if they'd be okay with all that suffering and all those rights violations, I don't think they would. And so, when we kind of don't want to do algebra before we learn basic like math and subtraction. Yeah, right. But so it'll be hard to appreciate, I think, more of the emotional weight there. And you're kind of seeing that even when you just like walk through the main hypothetical that we spoke about. But it'll click more to you of why like there's appreciation for the sort of depth of that. It's kind of looked like the difference between 2D and 3D. Like you have all these people walking at this sort of flat level, but if you come in and look down at them with that sort of appreciation, I mean, yeah, like you need to make sure that you actually extend the appreciation of the right to life of the animals in question before you want to ascribe words that give justice to the victim. So I see where you're coming from with that, but just don't jump the gun and feel like you're doing something wrong because society would tell you that is all I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. And I wrote down notes. I'll take this away, but listen, man, I've got to go. It's like almost 5 o'clock here. The sun's coming up, but it's been a good conversation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you're top 10 streamer by the end of the year. And God bless, man, and amen. Yeah, I'll take it easy.
Yeah, bless you. Man. Have yourself a great one. It's been a fun chat.
Sure, man. Take it easy.
Thanks. That was really great, guys. That I can't wait to clip that and show that to all the haters that and trolls that come on and say I'm bad faith and I cut people off. Guys, it really is yourself. If you behave as a good interlocutor, it's so weird, but you don't get screamed at and cut off and muted. Sophistry will never slide in my corner. I can destroy sophistry nicely. I can be patient. I was patient with all the people that I've spoken to up until now, but it's always a relative process. If somebody is being rude to you, for example, and you're like, I don't know, you're at a grocery store and someone walks by you and they say something like really demeaning. You don't have to be like, oh my God, I'm stooping down to their level if I say something rude back. It's like, you're not stooping down to their level. It's the concept of self-defense. And so, point by analogy, if you guys don't react in such a way where I have to prevent your sophistry, where I have to stop your rambunctiousness, your eagerness to want to be right. What's really funny is Bennett showed a lot of eagerness to want to be correct or, to not be absurd or to even face that he might have been justifying previously or having, participated in something that was wrong. Yet, guess what? He still gave respect. He listened to the party that has been critically thought out on having contributed towards the world's largest Holocaust, and that to which has a person who has awakened from that. And he said, you know what, shit, there's something to be said here. It didn't take much. It took a few minutes of his life. He's on his happy ass now, on his way to bed. The sun's coming up wherever he's at, and I'm gonna guess he sounds like he's from the UK or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I mean, again, there's just ways to conduct yourself, guys. So don't blame me because of your sophistry. Bennett is the gold standard thus far, okay? If I had an award system for how to be, my phraseology from here on out is going to be like Bennett. So good job, man. You've got the cold poison thumbs up. Really appreciate that. I gotta take a break for a few guys. I'll be back shortly, but thanks everyone who is tuning in thus far. Stick around. We've got hopefully some more reactions to do to gotta go back to I clicked off the Natalie Fulton one. My mind wasn't focused on that. I hate when it restarts on YouTube. Okay, I'll find it. Anyways, break time for a few. Goodness gracious, Natalie. You know, fuck. Yeah. Let me just. I don't want to misremember this. Let me go back to where we were.
Gains wield name the trait effectively to highlight the inconsistencies of their debate opponents. However, in Street Outreach, it just doesn't work. The goal of the philosophical debate is...
Oh, yeah. The goal of the philosophical debate. Natalie, you can't assert... There's two things. You cannot assert what the goal of people who deploy name the trait name the trait is. And you don't know what, and it's incoherent to say that the goal of name the trait is X. Like, name the trait doesn't have its own sense of agency. So what does it mean to say the goal of name the trait is to X or Y? That doesn't make any sense. The goal of using the tool name the trait can only ever be indexed towards an agent. So for you to say the goal of name the trait is X or Y is incoherent. You might say something like it doesn't have any sort of use that it could be applied for other than X or Y or Z. But then what you're really doing is attempting to make a positive claim that you're attempting to make a positive claim that name the trait would not affect somebody when it makes them realize the contradictions that exist on their view, other than something that is ineffective, that would not persuade them, that would X, Y, or Z. So if that's what you're trying to say, yeah, you're gonna want to make sure that you don't fucking say that the goal of name the trait is X or Y. Because again, like, I absolutely have a goal of deploying name the trait with regards to persuading people. And it's not an inherent issue with regards to name the trait. It's not even in fact, it's not even clear that it's a practical issue of deploying name the trait, let alone that it's not necessarily entailed.
To test logical consistency, and the goal of vegan advocacy.
Not a dichotomy. It can test logical consistency and be used to persuade others at the same time.
Philosophical debate is to test logical consistency, and the goal of vegan advocacy is to inspire and influence someone to go vegan.
Well, that last part of to go vegan is suspect, because if you uninterestingly define vegan as that to which somebody self-identifies the label as, that's going to be problematic, because that's going to mean that anybody who merely calls themselves vegan but possesses, let's just say, a view that violates the rights of animals in some way, shape, or form, or they're reducitarian, or they go vegan except for the cheese, or something like that, that somehow that actually appeases the concept of veganism. But I wouldn't consider somebody to be vegan, for example, merely from a self-identifying label. People call themselves vegan even though they justify buying pet food, buying organic, so on and so forth. So the problem with deploying name the trait, or with the problem with having a problem that's with somebody that deploys name the trait, because of the idea, how'd you phrase that?
Is to inspire and influence someone.
Oh, with the goal of going vegan, is that the idea of going vegan is not, you're right, it's not the same as street outreach. It's not something as frivolous and stupid as reducitarianism, like it mostly is, or even if it is from somebody who has the sufficient realization that it ought to be about abolition. that said concept of abolition is, okay, just go and, take challenge 22, just go and XYZ, just go and even watch a documentary. Like, I told Bennett to watch a documentary, but I did it in conjunction with the strongest logical foundation anyone ought ever had. Huh?
After name the trait.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's gotta possess some sort of baseline framework to appreciate. So these every like okay, so like with regards to this anti-debate sentiment, I know it feels, Natalie, I know it feels comforting, but it's really philosophically cowardly. And that, in effect, is cowardly towards the victims of the Holocaust. So, you could try to tell people that you're not convinced or so on and so forth. But when you walk away with no sort of structure for these people to have that is as solid as, number one, name the trait, and number two, it's usually built on a house of cards, like whether or not you gave them your 5 favorite fucking vegan cheeses, or something as frivolous as taste pleasure, something as frivolous as have they ever pet a goat, or they should go do this, or they should go do that, so on and so forth. Those are all positions that are not going to get somebody to have anything to fall back on independently, right? You effectively reduced it down to like a sort of, mood swing. Oh, I'm glad I was convinced by Natalie tonight. And then when like the feeling moves away, you've got you've got what to stand on logically on your own 2 feet. Well, it's certainly not fucking name the trait, because you've X'd that out of the equation. So, the sort of like concept that you're trying to appeal to, if it's just some like, I want somebody to feel good, so on and so forth, there's no, the reverse is actually true. It's not the case like, oh, I'm skeptical of name the trait at best. It's like, in fact, I'm not even skeptical at best of making someone just feel good without something as strong as a philosophical foundation. Something that forces their moral awareness on their moral asymmetry. Appreciating a logical invariant that once they accept no non-arbitrary trait separates humans and animals, the scope of moral concern can generalize to, it's not just I like goats, it's just I oppose unjustified harm. You can't just uninterestingly assert that someone should see the value that you see, Natalie.
One to go vegan, with the latter goal in mind, inspire and influence someone to go vegan. With the latter goal in mind, name the trait fails, and this vegan. With the latter goal in mind, and influence someone to go vegan. With
influence is even a wrong word. Like, the idea that you're just serving as sort of like an example or something like that sounds like, and maybe this is not what she means, but again, I don't like the connotation that she's putting forth. This idea that you have like something as weak as what you think is what I keep getting this fucking vibe of from her. Like, oh, I as the vegan think I like cherry pie. Bro, that's you, Natalie. That's fucking you. That's not us. People in the Name the Trait camp are the first ones to be like, yeah, so ask yourself, reflect on your values. If you wouldn't do this to X, something you already value, how can you justify doing it to why? Again, a contradiction, facing your contradiction. A contradiction necessarily entails that you're going to appreciate some kind of, traceability, right? And this is why this is when someone can articulate why they believe in what they believe. They can gain epistemic autonomy. Their conviction no longer demands just on who's talking. Oh, was it that activist on the street tonight? Or was it Bob or was it Steve? Steve's really good at convincing people to go vegan. Natalie's so good at convincing people to really operate under the umbrella term as self-identifying as vegan. Congratulations. Yeah. Activism grounded in logic like NTT will produce moral literacy, which is what we really want people to have. We rather than this moral contagion of like just kind of sneeze around people, just oh, he got the vegan bug. He's sick now. Yeah, wait till he's cured with fucking stupid ass positions, right? So again, it creates independent thinkers rather than followers. So but yeah, I can't stand this like comfort-based persuasion. The underlying mistake of like psychological reductionism of any kind, the belief that because many people resist challenge must be ineffective. Persuasion that avoids discomfort only yields compliance, not conviction. So yes, you may get people to agree in the moment to relieve tension, not because they've updated their worldview, but because it's like the equivalent of pain avoidance, right? Not moral growth. Because no moral anchor was formed, relapse is inevitable once the emotional equilibrium returns. So stop getting people to hyperfixate on the disposition that we know they already have. Yes, they have a disposition to not kill and eat animals. But if they don't have the logical connection, that's where the synthesis occurs.
The latter goal in mind, name the trait fails.
Look at how much she goes back and forth. Why I hate name the trait. And then how did she word it earlier? She was like, don't get me wrong.
The utility of name the trait in the context of the video. I want to clarify that I'm questioning the utility of.
Yeah, I'm questioning the utility of name the trait. That's all. That's all. Don't shoot the messenger. It's like really subtle shit to make it sound like she is being humble when she's trying so hard to be arrogant, just in like a nonchalant way. It's so manipulative, Natalie.
Again, with the latter goal in mind, name the trait fails, and this video.
You're back to that arrogant shit, so am I, bitch. Like, with the latter goal in mind, name the trait fails. Yeah, I know you don't have evidence that it fails when people actually deploy it with the level of logical precision that Isaac and Avi do, and yet the passion of Joey Carbstrong, right, like myself, I would say it's like a beautiful mix. You can only point to individual circumstances, anecdotes where you just believe that people didn't follow name the trait, either because they didn't understand it. Your dumbass probably didn't understand it. What the fuck? You probably have never even heard of the particularist reductio. And you want me to believe that you deployed name the trait in any sort of effective regard past what like newbies think that they understand it when they engage with it for 33 seconds online? Like, shut the hell up.
Explores why. Let's begin.
Why? Yo, the arrogance. She's a social scientist, yo. She's tired of being on the streets, being taken advantage of. She's tired of fucking people walking by her, telling her she's not gonna change the world or make people go vegan. She's so fucking past that. Guys, She has the fucking cure to the disease that is named the trait. The social disgust will be exposed as our intuitions of people who are sickened by it. David Ram, stand up a little bit more for the retards in the back. Come on, David, stop failing class. I know you were made fun of as a little kid. Everyone thought you were stupid. So when Avi exposed you for being dumb, you just couldn't help it. You're dumb, bro. Fucking own it. Oh, you don't want to own it, right? That's why you're friends with Daniel Ishii. Someone who wouldn't know what a performative contradiction was if he knew what a performative contradiction was. I'm taking all you motherfuckers out. Come at me. No, I mean, come on, like, seriously, the social disgust, while just pure arrogance, as she has no fucking concept of being able to provide evidence, appreciate where psychology actually lies. And my ultimate favorite, that if somebody walks away from the philosophy of the view in question, they would be choosing to not engage with the position just as much as somebody would with regards to other civil atrocities. Explosion, Marion. Yeah, seriously, Jesus, I know. Oh, here we go.
In with the fundamentals. Name the trait originated with ask yourself, and I'll let him explain it here.
My case for veganism is pretty simple.
Okay. Number one, specifically name the trait as it exists, originated in its form from Isaac. Did you know, Natalie, Isaac Brown does not own the logic, the underlying logic to name the trait? Did you know that when black people were being enslaved in the 1850s, that when Northerners attempted to liberate them by saying effectively, what's the morally relevant symmetry breaker, in paraphrasing it with that same exact mindset of what's the non-trivial difference between blacks and whites? And I gotta read Frederick Douglass's speech over again. He basically mentions the core logic of name the trait without saying it by name. Because guess what, Natalie? When anybody has ever historically compared two or more objects, sets of beings if you're autistic, two or more things, and compared the traits within those two to say, what is it that causes you to appreciate one and not the other? Maybe they say care about one, maybe they say trivial, maybe it doesn't matter the words that they use. As long as the conceptual underlying idea is that the party in question is trying to get the other party in question, one party in question is trying to get the other to appreciate that there's not a morally relevant distinction such that it justifies the current set of actions that the party is doing, they're deploying name the trait. No, I'm not committing an egalitarian herring. I'm not saying they're using the same words. I'm not saying that they're saying it by name. But the whole point is that if you take problem with name the trait, you are taking problem with the core logic that it rests upon. Because all that it has strength behind is the operation that it conducts from point A to point B of saying, yeah, this sort of thing that's being said here, this sort of thing that's being done here, this wouldn't be said or done, or this wouldn't be done if you were to appreciate this thing. That it's all that it is. We can thank Isaac for the enhanced articulation that exists within name the trait. You could look at it as the most superior form of appreciating how to deploy name the trait. It's like our mecha. It's like the steel, indestructible like position, but it's not like anybody who had earlier versions, less precise versions, but the same underlying logic wasn't wasn't able to convince somebody or wasn't operating with that same idea. So yeah, grass-fed, grass-finished. I've never fucking heard of that term, Dasha. But I'm just wondering if you're referring to humans. The hell does grass-finished mean? Corey said.
Ask yourself, and I'll let him explain it.
Can we talk about